Good morning, everybody. Hello, welcome. Thank you all for coming. Sorry we're starting a bit late. Unfortunately, Transport for London decided to cause a few hiccups for us this morning, but we will get straight into the presentations as quickly as possible. Wonderful to see so many of you here. We've got quite a diverse range of companies pitching for you today. Some of them have been with us right from the beginning, about 18 months ago, working and doing some very deep technical integration with our partners at Cisco, and also working with some primary research from the likes of UCL. Others only joined last week. So we have a real range of companies here. They're all eager to tell you a little bit about what they do. And this for us is it's a rolling program, right? So unlike most of the accelerators that you tend to go to, this is a place where we try and give the startup the time, support, and anything that we can to enable them on that journey and not try and tie them to a particular roadmap that they have to stick to. So this is our 6-month check-in. I hope that you enjoy it. I should say that there are 2 startups in particular I wanted to mention because they are being demoed throughout the whole day, and I hope that you get a chance to play with some of their tech. The first is called Witos, and Amy will be speaking in the second half of the session today. They are providing the Wi-Fi for us today. The Wi-Fi is .ideal, if you look that up on your phone. And this is a zonal Wi-Fi service. So the idea is that as you roam around the building throughout the day, you'll be presented with different information in each of those zones. A really powerful piece of technology. The other is CNIT, and Emily will be speaking at the end of this first half. CNIT is a video capture and editing suite. And we've got a number of the Ideal team here today who are going to be asking politely for you to give your comments and a bit of your thoughts into a camera, and you'll get a sense of how the CNET app works and the power that really sits behind that. So the first thing that I'll do just before we get into it is let me introduce our illustrious panel. There they are over there sitting on the high chairs. At the far end, Barry, who's the founder of Skyscanner, and I can guarantee you Skyscanner is definitely the cheapest place where you can buy flights to America. In the middle, we've got Priya, who is a fantastic product designer and the founder of Design for Social Change, and Linus, who I'm sure you all know, who is a VC at Wellington Partners. They're going to be leading the Q&A today after each of the pitches, but we do encourage you guys to obviously ask any questions that you have today. This is very much an opportunity for you to find out about the startups here, so please do feel free to chip in. And if you can stay with us until 11:30, a little bit later this morning, we're very fortunate to be joined by Nick Brisbourne, who is the managing partner of Forward Partners, who will be giving us a sense of his life and journey in the last 13 years across both the Silicon Valley and the London tech scenes and what he's learnt on that journey. So, without any further ado, let's get started, and I'll pass over to Carly, who's going to introduce our first startup today.
So I'm introducing SoAmply, who we've been working with for several months now. We're about to get their product launched at UCL. I'm looking forward to that. They were introduced to us by Capital Enterprise, and we're working with them because they've got a very innovative way of getting companies engaging with the social media and their employees. So Maz, where are you?
Sound testing. Good morning. My name is Maz Najm, and I'm the founder of SoAmply. I consider myself lucky. I've been working with something that I have truly passion for in the past 12 to 13 years, and that's social media. I started one of the first social agencies in 2004, ran social at Sky, and Ogilvy Group across their 10 agencies. Been nominated by Forbes and Times as Global Social, including as an influencer by MIT recently. I would love to share a story with you. A little while back, running a strategic social media piece on behalf of the EE board, consolidating social across their multiple departments, I came across a young lady in customer support, and she told me, Maz, I respond to customer support issues outside my working hours on my personal social media channels, and nobody knew what she was doing, the impact, sales, churn, and are we even thanking this individual? We know there's more of her, and there could be more of her, but how do you facilitate that? And that's when I knew I'm on the right track here. SoAmply is an employee amplification platform. We identify and nurture in-house social brand and company advocates. This concept came out of an 8-month consultative project with News Corp, working closely with internal comms global director around the launch of Fox Sports 1 in the US. Estimated viewers 90 million people. They wanted to amplify the campaign beyond their existing marketing approach. Well, we're talking about 20,000 people working at Fox. We knew a decent percentage of them are already sharing the love, but what's the impact? What type of content? And is it even factually correct? So we're looking at this approach helped me understand that I need a product in order to automate some of this approach. And we're talking about 4 key areas. One of them is a social media directory, a yellow pages, you might say. Second piece is a content repository where approved content by the brand, we're talking about company information, industry information, and perhaps campaign, available for the rest of us, and the rest of us can too suggest content, getting an approval, and is shareable. Please bear in mind, we're not talking about islands like Yammer, Chatter, or Jive. We're talking about in to out, creating a bridge. How do we measure the impact of this unique content that leaves the platform? And last but not least, how do we thank people? How do we gamify this and make it fun so that more folks can help? Well, my angel investor, Carol Lieflang, ex-senior exec at Barclays and Unilever, with his 150K, we were able to build this platform. We launched it about 4 months ago. We were nominated by IBM as a top 5 UK startup. Some of our great trialists are paying clients right now. And we have a healthy sales engine. We're talking about brands like UCL, QVC, Legal & General, Helen Alton. And we're getting inbound, which I'm very excited about, the likes of Nando's, Avon, and Danone. I have a great team. My CTO and technology is in Newcastle. And here in London, we're operations and account management. And I need to say, it's really interesting how brands are thinking about utilizing SoAmply. Okay? We're talking about Symantec, the antivirus company. They're connecting marketing with sales so that marketing is providing constant, relevant content to the sales team, maintaining share of voice and showcasing expertise. We're talking about a large retail who look at the audience that is connected to their employees as possible lead generation, providing customized content and perhaps creating a customized shopping experience. We have great advisors on board. CMO of Legal & General, ex-global head of brand at Citigroup. And I'm talking to some good technology folks like a CTO of a tech company with over 90 million users helping us and teaching us along this process. We are looking for 450K. Our SEI is still available. We haven't touched it. And this amount will help us to go after a market of, bless you, a market of 34 million and 100 million 2017. Okay. This amount will help us professionalize. It's a SaaS model. This helps us improve our customer support and also improving our product line. Last week, iTunes accepted our iPhone app. It's available on iTunes for downloads. It's been a great journey, and I hope you can see the value in what we're doing and join us. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? Can I start with the...
The 100 million part you said for 2017, is that top line revenues? You just threw in 100 million and I missed what it was about.
No, forgive me. I'm just saying that it is a market that we can go after. But
Okay.
we do have the calculation of what percentage with the amount available to us we can go after in the first year, say 0.2, and then after that, the second year increasing that. But that is a possible market that we could go after.
Okay, and I imagine there's a sweet spot of type of companies who would want to use this. So the smaller companies with only 1 or 2 staff, not so appealing. The big banks, etc. I can't imagine it's the last thing they want is their employees or the employees wanting to put anything out about JP Morgan or the big banks. Apologize if there's anyone here from there. But so I imagine there's a sweet spot of companies. How big is this market?
I appreciate the comment. When it comes to regulated content, we're seeing various industries. We're talking to PwC on the 3rd of March. We're sitting down with them to run a trial. You're correct in the fact that they are a highly regulated industry. But what is interesting about this is that it's content that has been pre-approved, so they can use it as a training program for those guys, for the consultants to use as well. Coming back to what type of industry, personally, I believe many industries, but it's fair to say initially, those that are friendlier towards, let's say, FMCG and so on, they would be the initial target because they're friendlier towards it. But then again, we are meeting with Legal & General, and it's a highly regulated industry there as well, and they are looking at how can they amplify their offline advocacy into online. They do a lot of charity, so they're looking at change of sentiment perhaps towards them by this content. Their own staff do a lot of charities as well. So tough industries, yes, but even with them you could find interesting areas that could be amplified.
Yeah.
I actually have a related question, if you don't mind, because I know I'm not in the panel, but how do you deal, so these days, most companies have pretty strict policies in terms of personal and corporate use of Twitter or social networks, tweets on my own, et cetera, et cetera. How do you deal with that? Because kind of coming back to the big, large corporates, for example, if you're basically asking your employees to be a cheap way of robotizing retweets, for example. How do you undo it? What's the legal kind of environment for the employees to be able to do this?
Sure, I appreciate your question. I think about a year ago, we ran a big project for Sky. They have over 700 social channels, and they have staff who are engaging. Firstly, can you ever stop people from engaging employees? You cannot. Can you ever police everything they say? You cannot. But is it going to be a huge part of overall branding? Yes, it is. And if over 30-40% average are already talking about it, how can you harness it and how can you utilize it? I would stay away with respect to using the word cheap, because your employees are care enough about the brand that they share in their own time on their own personal social channels. So this is an amplification approach. Coming back to guidelines, strict, some industries perhaps more than the others, they encourage that you have elements on the Twitter channel that, this is not my employee's opinion and so on. But you have a ton of brands who are truly, they should harness it, and they have a lot of folks that are actually talking on behalf of the brand as well. So it's some more than the others, like finance perhaps, or even pharma companies, but their own staff are also sharing. The type of content that they're sharing is about the product experience and so on. I'm saying that folks have their own social channels and they're talking anyway.
One last question. Oh, Priya?
We should let the others go.
The other
first.
person? Go ahead.
So you said you have already paying customers at the moment. What's the business model that you're using at the moment, and is that working?
It's SaaS, per person per month.
Per person.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
a lot. What up, Maz? Morning, everybody. My name's Tom Neen from the Cisco team. So I'll be introducing the Cisco Fold that we're putting forward to you today. So first up, we have our newest and tallest startup. Asset Mapping and Bill have been down here literally since last week, as Carly mentioned. Smart cities and solutions for smart cities have been something that Cisco have been interested in for a very long time. And asset mapping we've been talking to and meeting with for probably the last year or so. They were formerly based down in Level 39, down in Canary Wharf. We're delighted they've seen the light and come over to Ideal London. And we look forward to working with them very, very, very much. Asset mapping does exactly what it says on the tin. Basically, they're all about managing particularly non-IT assets that could be in a building or something like a hospital. So imagine scanners, X-ray equipment, air conditioning units, and being able to put all of that and manage it through one screen, in effect, and really be able to track the assets of the building. So with no further ado, over to Bill. I think you just done my pitch bomb. Hello. Good morning. Put that down, I think. Can you hear me okay? So, good morning. My name is Bill Klee, and I'm the CEO and founder of Asset Mapping. We're very much focused, as Tom mentions, on buildings and then the assets that are used to manage buildings. So this can be a physical asset such as an air conditioning unit, a CCTV. Now, the issue that's happening within the industry right now, it's a little bit like a car. If you get into a car, you don't know how much oil or petrol, let me get this, how much oil or petrol or how your car is operating, you're guessing. Now, currently, at the moment, within the built environment, people are spending between 86% of maintenance is reactive and 10% of the GDP is spent on asset failure and downstream problems. Now, pulling all that data together into a single platform, a single interlayer, allows building owners to manage it much more efficiently. Now, we're very much focused on the end user, the engineer and the technician, because if they know when an asset fails, they have the data about when it was installed, when it was last serviced, what parts there are available, they can start doing their job much more efficiently. And some of the projects we've been working on, we've saved between 35 and 65% of people's time. Now, let's go into this a little bit more. So within a building, you have all of these separate software systems, CAD, asset management, task management tools. So we gather all that up into a single database, and then we use what's called IoT technology, Internet of Things technology, to then connect to the head-end systems. So building management system, for example, uses a huge portion of the energy within a building. You then have security systems, energy, comms, but also by using the IoT device itself, you can then start augmenting these existing systems with cheap sensors. So that could be a temperature sensor, a light sensor, pressure differential switches, for example. So you can then start taking old buildings, which again, if you look at a city, they're pretty much already made. You can then start bringing those buildings online and starting helping managers and estate owners run them much more efficiently. We've been extremely lucky. We're working at a project at the moment called Cognisti, which is the Canary Wharf Smart Cities program. And we've become the base platform for this project. So all innovation that comes through this innovation program will be based on asset mapping. So they send the data to us, we can help them visualize its location and context. We're working with the Catapult, the Digital Catapult, the Future Cities Catapult, and also very recently the Transport Catapult for driverless cars. We've had a tsunami of interest from the technical companies. Cisco very kindly called us the management of management systems. And Intel and SAP are seeing us as what's called the last mile, how we gather data from these disparate systems to then enable them to put it into their systems. Again, I can talk a little bit more about how that jigsaw works. We have a couple of paid pilots, 4 paid pilots at the moment with Canary Wharf and Land Securities, and let me just break that down slightly. We are charging them £3,500 per floor to gather all of this disparate data, the CAD, the asset management tools, asset management data. And then we bring that online, and then we can start charging them £1 an asset per month. Please bear in mind that what we're doing is helping them reduce their OPEX cost. We're not a CapEx cost that goes on top, and we can start showing a return on investment within about a year. So one of the projects we're working with at the moment with Land Securities is a 20-floor building. We're looking at £70,000 to gather that data, and then over 3 years, it's about £120,000. Considering that they have 200 buildings, we're working with RBS. They have 3,500. There's one of the large companies here in the room that's just offered us a project with 5,000 large campuses. So the opportunity is absolutely massive. And this is what IoT is enabling. We're very lucky with the team we have. Andy Mulholland, he was the global CTO of Capgemini, a director of Cisco. He is now working for Cisco and Intel on their IoT strategy. Peter Jaco is our angel investor and now commercial director. His last company, Digital Shadows, went from 3 people to 50 people over 3 years and has just taken investment of $8 million. So both these people understand innovation. I'm very lucky to have discovered the problem at the London 2012 Olympics, and since then it's been going very well. Greg, again, was involved in the security of the Olympic Park, and he's helping us drive forward the, as you can all guess, the 3rd version of asset mapping. You know, we keep changing to make sure we can scale. That is pretty much a very brief overview of asset mapping. Thank you very much for your time. I would welcome any questions. Thanks, Bill. So, questions from Bill. I'll go to the panel first, perhaps.
What's the competition like in this space?
Really, the competition is the traditional way of doing this. When we first started doing this at the Olympics, and we were able to show savings during the installation period, we really expected lots of people to immediately start doing this. So as to date, the large organizations like the Honeywell Johnsons, they're still very much focused on a proprietary system. We're very much looking at this open agnostic platform, which then gives the confidence to the larger state owners that they're not buying into another proprietary locked-in system. Does that answer your question?
Another question from the panel.
Yeah, Bill, great
Hi.
pitch, by the way.
Thank you very much.
I was just curious about the service workflow on how we currently go and map the assets. So could you walk us through an example in the pilot on what exactly the steps are for somebody maintaining the building?
Sure. That's the tricky bit, because every building owner, first of all, is quite embarrassed by the data they have. We've just received a CD or DVD from one of the largest estate owners with a good look on it. Their data is on PDFs, it's on CAD drawings, it's on Excel sheets, it's in asset management tools. So there's no silver bullet to magically pull all that together. So we have to process that by hand. The other way that we've done is when a engineer visits site to look at one of those assets, we create an incentive for them to then add the serial number, the firmware, the condition, the motor. And sometimes that's a paid incentive. So you end up within a short period of time of getting the exact data of the building condition. So IoT is great, but it's the process behind this that's very important, and about enabling these engineers and technicians to do their job much more efficiently.
So they have to install your service onto their system first before they can start sourcing the data.
It's browser-based, it's cloud-based to a degree. I mean, some of that is kept on site. But yes, I mean, the processing the data we can use via asset mapping, but it's a combination of using a technician to input that data. Thank you.
One more question?
Sure. It seems like you're doing fantastically well at the moment. What is it that keeps you awake at night? What are the things that you need to solve, like in the next 6 months, to make this really, really big?
Depends on the time of the day that you catch me. Last week it was technical resource. That's solved, and yippee, we're moving on. The one that scared the hell out of me last week was a large tech organization contacted us with a huge opportunity. So now it's, if we don't deliver that as well as we hoped, as well as we intend,
right,
now I have to change my name and move to Cornwall.
Okay.
So the opportunity's there, but...
So what do you need help with? I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity.
So we're obviously looking, sorry, I should have mentioned this, we're looking for investment to scale this up probably towards the end of this year. Where we can prove what we're doing with these large estates, we would then be looking to take this abroad. I mean, we've had to turn down opportunities in the Middle East and the US because it's outside of our travel zone. So that's the thing, is proving what we're doing, getting companies like Cisco and some of the
the catapults to help us refine that proposition. But and technology, that keeps me up.
Good stuff. Thanks, Bill. Next up,
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Bill. So next up, the world of education, and we've all seen recently how the internet is, in some way, shape, or form, completely transforming our idea of how you deliver education. And I think that as that translates across to the mobile, all of a sudden the opportunity of ubiquity becomes ever more present. The ability to deliver information to a huge range of people who don't automatically have access. The way in which you change how that content is delivered, changing the relationship often between the teacher and the student, and making that much more personable, making that much more unique to the way in which that student wants to learn. And so with that, that's what we really saw in this next company, Kosu, which Galinda's going to present for us right now. So Galinda, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Good morning, everyone. I am impressed that everyone's up this early, so thank you very much for coming in. My name is Galinda Ganivos. I am the CEO and founder of Kosu. We are making mobile technology much more accessible for the ordinary teacher, trainer, and student. My background is over 13 years in the tech industry, having worked also previously for Orange and Yahoo, so I live and breathe mobile technology. I don't even have a fixed line phone at home or TV. So what I want to do today is, because a lot of people have already seen us present, is two things. One, do a really quick video to get people who haven't seen Kosu, to give them an understanding of what we do. And secondly, to give you an update on some of the really exciting stuff that's been happening at Kosu. So without ado, a quick video. So Kosu came about because we had created over 60 educational apps. People couldn't find that perfect app for what they wanted to teach or learn. So we decided, well, we understand how to design for effective learning on small screen. Let's open it up, create a platform where anyone can go on and create their own activities. So today, we've got beta users in over 140 different countries, and they're creating activities in their own native languages. So we're already getting activities created in English, Arabic, Chinese, and Thai. So Kosu has two components. One is the website, where people can go on and create the interactive learning activities designed specifically for the small screen. And then we have the Kosu apps, where people do the activities. So Kosu is the next generation of learning, and we are working to make mobile technology accessible to the ordinary teacher, trainer, or even student. Kosu is such that you don't have to go and hire a developer or learn to program. You can get straight on and create your own interactive experience and publish it through the mobile devices. So that gives you a brief idea of what we're doing at Kosu, and it's getting very exciting. We are now, as mentioned, in over 140 different countries around the world. This is people just discovering Kosu and deciding that they want to now experiment with how to use mobile in their education, in their training. And over the last year, we've had some amazing wins. Particularly last year, we were one of the winners at the Discovering Startups competition, which meant that we got to go to the Mobile World Congress last week and actually speak at the big event. We also, just this year, were featured by The Guardian in their Startup of the Year showcase. So there is a lot of support and real recognition for what we are trying to do through Kosu. So just to give you some idea of how Kosu is being used and what are we actually supporting, what type of activities. So first of all, in Oman, the Middle East is one of our most active regions. We had a single teacher called Salwa discover Kosu. She loved it so much. She was a middle school maths teacher. She ended up running a pilot program in Oman with over 140 people on it. She was then subsequently, that program won second prize last year in their national competition for digital innovation in education. So we are very, very proud of them. But she has done it all herself, including a whole series of YouTube videos on how to use Kosu in Arabic. I mean, I love these people when they do our own marketing materials. We also, last year, managed to secure our very first paid trial with a major healthcare organization here in the UK. We were very excited on that one because that's the first time where we've got a corporate to say, yes, we want to trial this. And we're seeing more and more interest in this area. And it's particularly interesting in the healthcare because you have a lot of staff who are mobile. How do you get them trained and keep them on the floor? So if your hospital or well-being, where they have to keep up to scratch with the CPD. Also, if you're dealing with the education industry, one of the most important things is to get case studies. And people keep saying, what's impact? What's impact? And we kept saying, it's a technology. It depends on how you use it. So we're absolutely over the moon that we have a professor in Egypt that we've discovered that they have actually run a proper research pilot on mobile learning in a blended learning context, and they use COSU for that. That piece of academic research has now been published in the International Journal of Management, and just an excerpt, we were over the moon again to see the actual results. 90% of the 135 nursing students said that they actually enjoyed the application, but moreover, over 90% then said they would want to see more courses delivered with COSU. So for us, is a massive win. And finally, a really nice, exciting project that we're helping to support. There's a group of people who are looking at Malawi, in particular, girls going to school there. They are often subjected to floods, so they can't get to school. So they're looking at putting wiki schools in and putting a mesh network in to get connectivity down to these wiki schools. They are looking to use COSU as the education delivery software that sits on top. So they're dealing directly with the Malawi government on that. And all of these opportunities are leading to some massive numbers. Just to give an example, in Oman, there are 280,000 students there, which 90% are under the responsibility of the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education there is aware of COSU. When we went to see what was happening over there last year, we got the call, come to the ministry now. 15 minutes later, we're in the ministry presenting. Similarly, in Egypt, where the university professor there is doing the work, these are not small universities. This university, Helwan University, has 100,000 students, and there's another 60 such universities in Egypt alone. So what we're looking at are some really, really large numbers coming through and real interesting possibilities here. So today, if anything of this has really captured your imagination, we are looking for strategic partners. So this could be anyone who would like to work with us through strategic projects, through distribution models, or even if you believe you could be a real strategic investor coming in and supporting us and opening up doors, we would love to speak to you. Otherwise, you can sign up to COSU today as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Glinda. Questions from the floor, perhaps, first this time. Any questions for Glinda? No questions at all. I'm sure someone's out there has got a burning question. All right, if not, let's go to the panel. Barry, why don't we start with you?
I love the EdTech space, and congratulations on what you've done. Questions around the onboarding side of things. So the end result looks great. Yeah. So if you speak to any teacher in the UK, these guys are being assessed within an inch of their life by Ofsted and have no time in the day or for their time. So the thought of them agreeing to then create new content on a brand new platform conceptually sounds brilliant, but trying to get them over the line to take this up and actually make the jump to get that created, I think will be tough. So it'll be interesting to know how you do that sale.
First of all, the UK education market, where you're talking about the primary, secondary, is not our key focus.
Okay.
Because of the pressures there, and particularly on the cost structure, and who's actually responsible for the budget. Mm-hmm. However, saying that, we do a lot of workshops in schools, and the way COSU is used differs dramatically from each geography, the context, what the age group, what the subject is. What we found to be the most effective way of use here in the UK education is not the teachers creating activities. It's actually the students themselves. So the students pick it up so quick. They go on, they create the activities, because to understand a concept, you have to understand a concept first before you can create an activity, rather than just passively answering questions. So when we go and do workshops in the schools here, because it's good testing as well, we get the kids to create the activities, and then they send them to each other. And they are brutal on the feedback. I mean, that question makes no sense. I mean, the teachers would never get away with it. So if we were to consciously focus on the UK education market, we go in and we sell it as a tool for the students to engage via the mobile, peer-to-peer learning, as opposed to a teacher focus for that very reason, on time. But once you're set up, it's quicker than creating a paper version and printing it off.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the who your target customer is, in the sense where, I mean, it's quite a breadth here. You both have like anything from in Africa to, you know, the corporates and so on. Who you're trying to target, because that will obviously have a huge impact on, take the distribution partners that you're looking for example.
We often get that question because it has a broad applicability. We've spent the last year, what we call in our beta phase, really testing the market and see where there's early interest to really leverage off. So we've tied it down now to education in the Middle East, because there's also a much bigger willingness to pay, much better revenue streams there, and also corporate healthcare here in Europe. So there are 2 key focus areas specifically.
Yeah, I was just curious about, you know, you found a great opportunity in mobile learning and the differentiation of COSU itself compared to other mobile learning platforms out there, especially with like things like Udemy and Coursera coming in that space, creating, you know, crowdsourced learning tools.
At COSU, we are designed specifically for that small screen. So we can be quite complementary to what we call the big screen experience. So if you think of how you use your mobile versus how you use your computer, they're very, very different experiences. So that's how we distinguish from what we call the perceived competition in the big screen world. In terms of the direct competitors who are doing mobile-specific learning, there's only a handful of us around the world. There is Mobile 21 in the US. It's owned by Amantras. They focus on the schools over there. They're in hibernation because they struggle on that first world education market. You've got companies like Drona, who are in India, more the old tech into the corporates. And you know, so you've got these really sort of niche players out there where we're all, you know, sort of competing. We're probably the only ones who are mass market in the sense that anyone can get on, start going, and that creates the lead generation for us. But if you talk to anyone of any of the users who have actually gone and looked at some of this stuff, you know, COSU is so easy to get on and get started. I mean, that's what they love. Anyone, if I go back to the strategy and the focus areas, anyone who's got distribution into the Middle East, also into the corporate world here. This can either be you already got sales straight into those organizations, or you, particularly if you've got a complementary product. So if you're dealing with corporates here, if you're already doing a HR system, COSU is a perfect plug-in, can sit right next to the existing systems and start to delivering via mobile. So particularly on the sales and distribution would be key for us.
Are there any plans to expand into South America? I did see some downloads of your application there, and are you looking for partners there too? South America, you have Brazil, it's a very large market, and the rest of South America is easy catch because they all speak the same language.
Yeah. Well, we get often told we can't do a broad focus. However, someone came to me, he said, here on the plate, you got a distribution deal into South America. I won't say no. We do have, particularly in Mexico and Chile, some very active users. In Mexico, we see it's lots of people doing training for small businesses. So they're very entrepreneurial, we're saying, in Mexico. In Chile, it's looking like the more traditional university level. So for us, we're a small team. We won't specifically be focusing on that till a later stage. However, if someone comes to us and says, I can get you a deal signed, I'm not going to say no to that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Belinda.
Oh.
I can see there's quite a few people who are outside, so we're just going to quickly pause for 30 seconds while Len and Tim help them to get some accommodation. Fantastic to see so many people here. And Tom, in the meantime, I'll let you introduce the next company.
Good stuff, thanks, Nick. So continuing in a theme from the Cisco side, we're still going to be looking slightly in the smart cities area. So the next company up are a company called EnergyDeck. We've known EnergyDeck for probably the last 2 or 3 years. They were a semi-finalist in our Big Awards competition, which is a competition open to tech-based startups back in 2013. quick plug for that. We're launching here next week, actually, on Tuesday. So if any of you have good early stage tech companies working in the IoT space, or IoE space as we call it, then point them towards that competition, because it's launching on Tuesday. But Energy Deck, they've been here about 3 or 4 months, and they're focused very much on energy management within buildings. And I guess the key aspect that they look at is enabling portfolio or property portfolio owners to benchmark the performance of their buildings against one another. So you can really get down to the detail of understanding, is there something not quite right in the setup of one building against another. So with no further ado, I'll introduce Nick Mason.
Thanks, Tom. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Nick Mason. I'm the COO at Energy Deck. I'm here to introduce the company and the proposition to you. Energy Deck, the company, was founded by Benjamin Cott when he left Google, where he was the head of European green business operations for about 5 years. His key insight and the heart of Energy Deck today is that in order to achieve meaningful, positive change on the way we use resources in the built environment, is that we're going to need to use everyone's data and everyone's experiences, bring those together and actually provide meaningful insights out to individuals. So we're a platform that gets people to share data, crowdsources knowledge and experience, and then provides informed decision-making to individuals who are responsible for the buildings in which they live, work, and play, whether that's a 2-bedroom flat in the East Midlands or the largest private office in Paris, which are 2 examples of buildings that are on the platform today. So in many ways, we help people run buildings better. Why is this important? Everyone in the room today is probably going to spend about 90% of their lives inside the built environment, majority of that inside buildings themselves. We know that buildings are very inefficient. We know they waste a lot of resources, and this waste is where the opportunity lies. The $44 billion US is an estimate recently of the energy management services market opportunity by 2020, and that's just energy management. That's one small part of the opportunity within the built environment related to data. There's a number of reasons why achieving resource efficiency in buildings is tricky. We tend to focus on data. So how do we get good, high-quality, timely data to the people who need to make those decisions? Traditionally, that's been difficult for a number of reasons, mostly around cost. Data is expensive. Metering is expensive, and if you can get the metering in, it's often very difficult to get the data out of the building in which it's generated. However, with the Internet of Things coming along, the price of sensors and meters is dropping, and the communications infrastructure that underpins IoT is meaning that this blocker is actually being removed, and what is a trickle of good data is going to become a tsunami of good data in future, which is where we come in. Which is all well and good in terms of the theory, but the question is, why are people buying us today? What are they using us for today? Our primary segment is the corporate real estate landlords, by which we mean the real estate investment funds and trusts, so the big guys who own the buildings that we all live and work in. They're looking for operational efficiency, they're looking for ways of engaging with their tenants to reduce tenant churn, but fundamentally they're looking for ways to protect their asset value in future. And they're beginning to understand that having a sustainable building, but more importantly being able to prove you have a sustainable building, is key to protecting that asset value. I can't tell you who our primary client is in this forum, but I'm quite happy to talk about them afterwards in the cafe, still under NDA there. In terms of social housing landlords, another one of our key direct segments, they're also interested in asset value and protecting that. They have massive portfolios, sometimes of 30,000 plus houses, but they're actually more interested in how do they engage with their tenants, how do they reduce fuel poverty across their user base, and how do they make the best use of a limited investment fund to achieve the outcomes they need when you're talking about a very geographically spread portfolio and a lot of technological choices they can make. The third major channel is our partner channel. This one's been growing recently. We provide a white-labeled version of Energy Deck for our partners to sell the service to their clients. But the really interesting thing is that we're finding that they're actually selling the platform to their partners. So we're getting partners stacked on top of partners. Conserve is a good example. That's a white-labeled version of Energy Deck selling into hotels and restaurants. And they've recently signed a deal with the global Whole World Water campaign to be the data platform for that campaign. And they've also signed up with BookDifferent.com. So in future, when you go to use BookDifferent.com and you see a carbon intensity figure next to the hotel you're about to book in, that data will ultimately have been drawn from the Energy Deck database. We're a small team still, myself, Benjamin, and Bruno, our CTO. He spent about 20 years building IT for the finance industry. But we're growing. We recently hired a head of sales. We have a new sales and delivery intern. And we have 3 back-end and front-end developers joining us in April next month, in London. And we have a back-end development team in Kiev to complement them. Our investors and advisors tend to be drawn from the property, energy, and finance industries, mostly because they tend to understand the proposition and they can offer us some good strategic support and advice there. Number of clients, number of awards and recognitions. The key one for me here is Innovate UK. Last year we won 2 Innovate UK R&D grants focused on social housing and IoT. In January this year we won a Eurostar, so an EU-funded grant that's managed by Innovate UK, to work with a couple of Danish companies to produce very cheap metering and monitoring systems for SMEs and also the consumer markets. Post-revenue for about a year now. In December, we closed an EIS round of 300,000. The aim is to be well placed for a Series A round early 2016. We're here today asking for another 200,000 to 300,000 to help us achieve that goal. Thanks for listening. I'll be keen to talk to everyone after in the cafe.
Thanks, Nick. So, questions first from the floor for Nick. Very shy floor here today. Somebody at the back.
In terms of, you talk about at the moment, there's a lot of low quality data. How much investment is required from the building point of view to actually get high quality data? So you're talking about there will be a tsunami, but what's that going to cost someone?
To give you an example, last week we meted a large building out in Paddington for that client I can't talk about. And that cost about £20,000 to do all the main equipment within I think it's about a 7 or 8 story prestige office block. Now they haven't gone down to the level of metering each tenant floor. That would increase the cost, obviously. So that's sort of the commercial level cost. To do a domestic house at the moment, it's probably going to cost you around almost £500 perhaps. The project that we're working on with the Danish companies would see those sensors literally drop to £1, between £1 and £10. That's the goal. And so we're seeing that technology being developed over the next 2 to 3 years, and that's where the change is going to come from.
Can you elaborate on your 30-plus paying customers? Where are they all from? Are all your customers from the UK, and how much revenues are you getting from each of them?
The customer base is primarily UK, although the global landlords mean that we're operating in France and Germany currently, and we have an active partner in Cyprus as well, which is an interesting market for energy. And again, coming back to that Eurostars grant, it will allow us to localize, to translate, so we can actually go to look for partners in Europe going forward, and we're in a number of conversations with partners in the US. We also have a number of direct sort of corporate clients, like say Sony or Pucker Herbs, or actual owner-occupiers. They're more on an opportunistic basis when they come through, rather than a sort of a direct marketing campaign. I can't sort of break down exactly what everyone's paying us because it varies massively from client to client. But in terms of our revenue goals, we want to shift from what is 50k recurring last year to a year to 50k recurring a month by the end of this year. So we have some quite high targets in terms of achieving growth.
Question from the gentleman at the back.
Yeah, how do you compete or complement asset mapping? That we've just heard from.
No, it's interesting. We've known asset mapping for a couple of years now, and it is a question of cooperate, not compete, and that asset mapping will look. If I'm understanding asset mapping correctly, Bill, we'll look at the way individual assets are being run at that point in time. It'll give you that ability to go down and have a look and see what's going on. What we tend to focus on is a long-term trend analysis of the impact of actions that have been taken. But more importantly, we then take that data, anonymize it, benchmark it, and push it out into the broader user base. So while the likes of asset mapping will help you manage your assets, which is what they're there to do, will help provide that long-term insight in terms of how other people in similar buildings are managing their assets. And you know what, in that case, asset mapping may come up as the number one reason why people are driving savings. And so it can be fed back into other building owners.
Just a question in terms of kind of your timeline to funding, etc. How do you the biggest trend in the building energy sector is performance contracting, and that's purely a service type play. How do you deal with that?
That's one of our primary markets, in fact, and we're just getting into it. The interesting thing with energy performance contracting is that people tend to sell the contracts and worry about the data afterwards. And they're finding that those contracts are falling over because they can't prove the savings, so they can't extract the value from them. So I can't, it's under NDA still, but I can potentially talk about after, but there's There are EPC companies that we're talking to now where we go in, provide the metering, provide the monitoring, give them that data quality they need so that they can sell the EPC contracts.
Are we in sort of land grab mode? Or are you doing something, you haven't really touched on the technology, are you doing something that others can't?
A little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. I would say that that benchmarking, that sharing of data is not something that we see in the marketplace currently. That is genuinely different. But on the other hand, yes, there are other energy management platforms out there today. Not entirely sure about the land grab aspect. I think the majority of the market is still, to be quite frank, using Excel. So there's a lot of opportunity, untapped opportunity in the marketplace. But fundamentally, when you get down to it, it is around that data scale, the big data play, the ability to share data between users, which is fundamentally different from the traditional approach.
Everything becomes a lot easier to be measured. I'm just wondering if your tech is doing something that you don't believe other people will be able to do.
Well, no, that's actually something I don't believe other people will be able to do very easily.
Right.
So it's not cheap to go back and change the system so that people can actually compare data between accounts. One of the other tricks standard in the industry is if I sell you a contract, I'm also going to sell you 60 or 100,000 pounds worth of implementation fees, which tend to mean that every account is bespoke. And we're moving in the other direction, saying, well, that shouldn't be the case. You have a building, you have an electricity meter, that's substantially similar to your building electricity meter. Now, if we can keep those the same, then we increase our ability to make those comparisons in a meaningful way. But actually what it means is it's very difficult for people who haven't started that, or companies who haven't done that from the outset, to come back in and do it.
Okay. Fantastic. Well done, Nick. Thanks a lot. So last up, I think we have one more from Nick.
Thanks, Tom. We'll invite CNET on the stage, and then we're going to just have a very quick break for coffee, and then we'll come back. There's another 5 fantastic startups for you to come and listen to. This next company we are really excited about. So my background is very much being within the television space, and the video production market itself, whether that's online video, broadcast, or even for publishers like ourselves, that whole industry has gone through very little in terms of innovation and change to benefit from a lot of the fantastic technology that you're seeing in front of you today. That's now changing. And these guys are really at the heart of that, and that's really exciting. On the other side of the table, you've got a whole range of brands, advertisers, and a whole range of other organizations who increasingly need to use video as their means of communicating with their audience. It's not sufficient for us anymore to be happy as consumers just reading a whole bunch of text and looking at images. We want to see video, and that's what's really going to capture our imagination. Where do we get that video from? And who's going to do that all for us? Well, that's when we met Emily from CNET, and I'm delighted she's here today to give you a little bit about what CNET's all about. So, Emily, over to you.
Hi, I'm Emily from CNET. I'm the co-founder. Just over 2 years ago, I moved to South Africa to create a documentary around rhino poaching. As soon as I arrived there, I went to go and film a big protest that was happening, but I was actually quite shocked. Everybody was already documenting this. The crowd were already filming everything on their phones. Their footage was real, personal, and opinionated. This is the idea where CNET was born. CNET is a video collaboration platform. We help brands and organizations easily co-create video with their target audiences. So with their employees, experts, researchers, journalists. It's about bringing the people who are the most knowledgeable, most passionate about the brand into the content creation. So how does it work? We set brands up with their own private online studio. From here, you can then load challenges and tasks into your own Capture app. This can be white labeled and can also sit within an existing app. Challenges are then pushed to your new mobile film crew. This could be 10 employees or hundreds of thousands of fans through a social campaign online. They select a shot to record, film, and upload. Because of the T's and C's in the app, the brand own everything that arrives in the studio. It's all converted on upload, tagged and sorted in the right folder. This means it's immediately ready for review, editing, and sharing out online. And if you don't have the editing resource that you need, we're growing a crowdsourced editor network of editors who can follow your brand briefs, log into your studio remotely, and help you create the content you need. This is a UGC first. You can now turn branded, crowdsourced video out whilst the events are happening. We're just over a year old. We've just secured a follow-on seed round, and we have grown our initial 2-man team to now 8 people. We've got an unbelievably experienced tech team who've been working extensively in video, and also a product team who've been working building products for the likes of Stella McCartney, Nike, and Google. Our sales team secured revenue of £100,000 in the first 9 months. This year, in the first 2 months, we've secured 50,000. We're growing at an incredible rate, working not only with new clients, but also scaling up with our existing. For example, we created the BBC an Earth Unmissable app powered by CNET. This app was initially used just with their producers to capture behind-the-scenes moments with their production crews out on location. Then they decided 4 days ago, off the back of that hashtag Weaselpecker picture, to actually push that app out to their online community, where within 24 hours, people were submitting hundreds of videos and clips from all over the world, which they could then brand, turn around, and share back out to the community. The engagement levels went through the roof. The people most passionate creating the content were also the ones who were most likely to share. Other brands within the BBC are now talking to us, and the public service BBC are now also speaking to us about contracts this year. And we're not just working with the BBC. We're also collecting internal insights from the top marketeers with Unilever. We're collecting video from people trekking in the mountains in New Zealand with STA Travel. We're powering behind-the-scenes video for Team GB with the National Lottery, and powering the crowd for the Freedom 2 campaign with Pride. So why are our clients liking us so much? We are providing new relative content that's populating their feeds and engaging the people who care the most. We have an unbelievably speedy turnaround time, but they can keep control of the content they want to share. We recently did a campaign for the UFC a few weeks ago, and David Allen has now said that CNET is a fundamental part of covering their fight week going forward. We smashed their Twitter records in terms of engagement, and our videos in the 4 days that we powered the content up to the lead of the event got over 3 million impressions online, way higher than they were expecting and that they usually get. And this again is because it's the people who are passionate, creating and then sharing. As I said, we've been going for just about a year, so I've created a video to show you just some of our favorite footage we've had through the platform so far, all captured on phones. This is one of the most exciting movements happening in video today, and transforming not only how brands are going to create their next content, but actually how they're going to engage and communicate with their audiences. We have just closed a follow-on round. However, we're moving at a very fast pace, and we'll be looking to another round this year. And I'd love to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. To the panel first for questions. Barry.
It wasn't clear if this is a B2C or a B2B proposition. So if you can answer that one, and I have a follow-on.
Yes, we sell B2B, and then it's about the B2C, so then communicating with their consumers.
Okay, so a lot of the success of this will rely on people at the event at that particular time, knowing that this exists and they have the opportunity to upload this for this particular brand. So you're going to have to rely on the B2B element to market to their audience. So how can you just talk about that process and how it's gone so far? That'd be good.
Sure. So where we differ, so we're not trying to get, if it was a Glastonbury, we're not trying to get hundreds of thousands of people up think it's, I can't remember the size of the event, I think it's around that, submitting video. If it's about creating that much noise, then hashtagging content is an easy way to do that. What we're doing is working with the brands and the broadcasters to then say, right, put us in touch with the event organizers, your employees on the ground, the talent who are being paid to be there, and also the sponsors, and then they're the ones that create the content. So it's more specific people that are actually filming the video, like with the British Athletics. So it's the athletes doing the filming. We do stuff with football clubs, and it's the players and the coaches doing some of the filming. And then they can call out to their super fans to get engaged.
And so you're relying on the celebrities, I guess, or the individuals who are brand advocates for that particular brand to then pump it out to their followers, is that right?
So yeah, or it could even just be the employees themselves. So getting them to generate the content. And then when that goes out on the back of that, then there's more engagement that can grow with the community. And we're collecting in data as well in terms of who's submitting, so we can then grow the communities on the platform for the brand. But initially our start point and where we're creating our content initially is with sort of specific target people. So the journalists, the researchers, or the experts.
Linus, coming to you.
Could you talk a little bit about the revenue model around how much, do you do some sort of variable pricing depending on who the client is? And because I'm assuming some of these might not be able to pay too much.
Yeah, some of them, everyone tries to pay not too much.
Yeah, exactly.
But we work on a pay-as-you-go or a subscription. So if we work with agencies who we're starting to do a lot more work with now, and then they're fantastic resellers for us, they're pay-as-you-go, so it's a higher fee. And then there's different sort of packages that we have, whether you want data collection analytics, whether you want seeding, whether you want an embedded desktop uploader. We can sort of structure different levels for you. And then there's also then the subscription, so then the ongoing, with the likes of the internal comms teams are signing up ongoing, and the broadcasters, so Bauer, BBC. So they pay a monthly fee.
I think there's a question over there. The microphone's on the way. 2 secs.
Sorry.
So maybe this is kind of a follow-on on those questions. It's about your, how do you go about, or what's your customer acquisition strategy? And I saw most of your clients are only in the UK, and is this acquisition strategy also, customer acquisition strategy also will expand into other parts of the world, and will your strategy change there?
So our strategy at the moment is we are working a lot direct to brand. We are also working with agencies, which is a big sales strategy for us because they're just a reseller. A lot of these clients are in the UK, but they're actually enterprise clients. So a lot of the projects we run are in Australia, in the States, in Africa. They're not necessarily here. But it's just that the initial brands for us to start here. And I think the sales strategy will be the same because what we're getting, especially with the agencies who are worldwide, is they're passing us on to further brands and it's spiraling out that way. We're also then looking into different resellers, such as smaller production companies, and our editors that we work with in the network also get a fee if they are able to pass us on to further work. That helps.
Question at the back.
Hi, you mentioned earlier about your T's and C's ownership issues. I noticed some sport issues. Do you have any conflict with license holders such as Sky or football clubs who currently own that brand and the coverage of it?
So we work, either we work with the brand, or if it's around a football game, then we're working with the football teams, but we're still not allowed to get the actual game itself. But that's not what we're trying to capture. You've got phenomenal HD swooping slow-mo videos for that. This is, before you go out on the pitch, in the locker room, it's the fans on the way to the event. How do they feel? It's them sort of getting their scarf on and they're washing their kind of team shirt, whatever it is. It's all the kind of behind-the-scenes backstage stuff. Like we had the athletes cooking breakfast and they eat steak and 8 eggs and whatever it is in the morning. So it's about capturing those moments rather than the footballer who gets the good goal.
Just coming back to Barry.
I imagine getting the first sale with a particular brand is quite an easy thing. Conceptually, you do better on social media. Getting repeat custom from these brands, your application and your platform needs to be able to say that you will improve your particular metrics by X. So other than just you will do better, some nebulous, you will do better on social media, what is it you're selling as far as, where's the benefit come from for the brand longer term?
So what we're finding at the moment with one client we're working with, they're finding it very hard to target a specific age group and gender. So what we can do is then set the projects out, and then we're collecting the data of whoever's contributing, so you can start to direct it and engage with those people to be your content creators, therefore targeting that group, sharing the content back out to them, and then pushing the reach further that way. And that's what we've seen happen, and then that hooks the clients in and has sort of led to recurring revenue.
Brilliant. Thanks, Emily. Any other questions? There's one more at the back. Final question.
Hi. So I like the idea of crowdsourcing content, but I guess one of the issues is that once you crowdsource content to the crowd, a lot of it is actually pretty bad. Firstly, do brands care about kind of large volume, bad quality, a lot of which would be bad quality content?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So what we do in the platform, because it's all directed, it means the brand's actually saying the exact shots they need, and we put a time limit, or the brand customizes that, or the agency. So you're actually only giving, say, 10 seconds per clip that comes in, and you're specifically saying what you want. On the whole, because we're targeting the superfans, the experts, the employees, they're actually taking a lot more care over the content they submit, so the quality is much higher. Rather than doing the big call out to hundreds of thousands at an event to all submit. That sort of would be in the hashtag sort of reign of things. And because it's very easy to review, edit, and share, we can make sure that the quality that's pushed out is always very high.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Emily.
Okay.
Well done. So we're going to take a very quick break. If we can try and be back here by sort of about 10 to, if you can. Just grab a cup of coffee and then maybe head straight back down. We've got 5 fantastic startups who'd listen to you again in the second half. The next company that we're going to have up here is really exciting. Now, I met Jeff, who's the founder of Trint, back in May last year. And he showed up in our office on Fleet Street. He just cycled in, it'd been raining, so he looked a little bit disheveled. He showed up with a sort of half-baked demo that kind of worked and showed what it was about, but not really. And he had a pitch deck which pretty much told his entire life story, which he abandoned then halfway through. And he sat down, and you could see that he had all this sort of grit and determination. He was saying, look, whatever happens, I'm going to build this into a business, you know. So we set him on his way with a few introductions and a few pointers and whatever. Thought nothing of it. And then about 6 months later, he got back in touch and he said, Nick, I've met all these people you told me to meet, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to build a team. We're going to rent an Airbnb for 6 weeks, and we're going to build the product. Can I come and talk to you about this product once I've built it? And I said, yeah, hey, why not? And he came in, and he absolutely blew us away. It's a fantastic product. He's been incredibly brave. He's going to do a live demo for you right now, so you'll see exactly what this is all about. So without any further ado, please can I introduce Jeff from Trint.
Thank you, Nick. I think with that introduction, I don't really need to speak. My name is Jeff Kaufman. I have been a journalist for more than 30 years. I have been a war correspondent, a foreign correspondent. Started in Canada with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, moved almost 20 years ago to CBS Evening News in New York, was recruited then by ABC News, spent 10 years covering Latin America and the southern US, some of the biggest stories of our time, the Gulf oil spill, the Chile mine rescue. I did 5 tours in Iraq. This is me in Libya. And this is what a reporter's daily life is like, not necessarily being in a war zone, but you can't write your story until you transcribe the interviews. Amidst all the technological change over the last 50 years in journalism, and you know what it is, one task remains just as it has for 50 years. The cassette recorder that we all, well, some of us grew up with, is really essentially the same task today as it was in the 1960s and 70s. You hit play, you hit stop, and you type. And either you do it, or in my case as a network correspondent, I've had producers and assistants, but I still do it. My producer was trying to find us a place to sleep that night. Or you send it out to a very expensive transcription service. 60 to 100 pounds an hour, takes a couple of days, and it will make a lot of mistakes. I know because we do use it sometimes at the network level. And Nick's right. I have wondered why no one has solved the pain point in journalism for a very long time. And when I met the team that I'll introduce you to in a moment, I realized that, well, I understand this. I've lived this problem and transcribed thousands of hours of interviews. Why don't we do it? And Nick's right, we have, and I'll show you. So this is what we do. I really sometimes feel I should be wearing a cape here with a top hat, because I think what we do is performing a magic trick. It really is, it's beyond something I could have imagined possible years ago. But we take the pain out of transcription. We search, we verify, we correct, we edit, we export, all without actually having to be a stenographer. We are talking to the highest levels of news organizations around the world. And what they say to us is, you know Siri, it makes mistakes, there's no way we'll use it because we'll get hung out to dry with those crazy errors you get from automated transcription. Trint is fail-safe. So let me show you, there's no better way. So normally I like to do an interview on the stage when I'm demonstrating to investors and turn it around. It takes about 15 minutes now. By the end of the year, we expect to get that down to a few minutes. So I spoke to Linus just before this morning, and this is his unedited interview. And let me just go back and show you. So this is actually the file here. Anything that's been edited has this. So this is an untouched virgin Trint. And what it shows you is our technology. It is Wednesday morning. It's a big day at IDEA London. Lots of people here to present some really smart ideas to some very, very deep-pocketed investors who are eager to put their money behind some really innovative, forward-thinking projects. Linus, what's your role here?
So I am an investor, so today I'm going to be part of the investment panel and, you know.
Okay, so what are we looking at here? We're looking at part of our IP innovation, and we've just registered our IP this week in the US, is what we call granular word alignment. Each of these words is a separate data point. And so when I hit the word Wednesday morning, it's right on there. We're using data points that are so micro, we actually have data points to separate the spaces. This gives us a precision word alignment that's never been achieved before. There is nothing like this on the market. We are also using, for the first time ever, confidence levels. That 99.5% is the algorithm saying it has a little humility. It never gives you 100. It says, I am sure that word is idea. Now, Linus has a rather unusual name that is not in the core lexicon of any speech-to-text transcription. So he gets 35%. Well, so that's why it's red. We've created, again, part of our IP, something that I conceived was a confidence tool that says, these are the weak words that you ought to really be careful. This is where Siri trips you up. This is why we're fail-safe, because we know, and we can hit the tab button, for example. London. So there, I said it translated it as and. I replace it, I hit return, and it turns black. I hit tab. Eager to okay, the 2 is correct. Linus, what's your... Okay, so Linus. And there you go. And then there are other tools. For example, one of the challenges in journalism when you have a long interview is being able to identify where it is in the interview. If I do a 20-minute interview with you that's going to appear in tonight's newscast or tomorrow's front page, I'm likely only to use 15 seconds or a short soundbite. This is a very short interview. But say this were the sentence that I wanted to use. I hit highlight, and it tells me that comes 21 seconds into the interview, and it's 13.2 seconds. If you do what I've done for 30 years, that's magic, because that takes ages. You've got to scroll through the interview based on your notes, you've got to find the moment, you've got to time it, and then you've got to transcribe it. I just did it for you with almost zero effort. So, what else can I show you? A few other little innovations here. Really simple things. You can put a headline in. This is the kind of thing that I would use. Walking shot. The whole point being, that doesn't affect the timing. It's all about maintaining the integrity of the timing. And here's an interesting thing. We've already done this in prototype, and we'll do it in a coming beta. We will allow you to edit using drag and drop, with video, by the way, which we can already do. That goes to the other side of the screen, and by simply moving word-aligned text with audio and or video, You'll be able to edit and export. So you can take a 20-minute interview, you can reduce it to a 3-minute précis, and put it on your website in a matter of a couple of minutes. And that's the magic of Trin. There are a whole bunch more innovations up here, which I'm not going to go to now because we have limited time, and I want to show you a few other things. If we can switch back to the PowerPoint, please. There we go. So this is our unfair advantage. These guys, I wouldn't be doing this if I weren't working with these guys. These guys are all academically trained in this area. This is a real niche of coding. These guys have been friends for years. They've worked together 10, 15 years. In fact, just yesterday we confirmed we've hired another one of their gang who is also an expert in this area. He's our UX designer. He was working part-time and he's turned down a very high-paying job to work with us because he's so excited by what we've already achieved. We have this core team of developers. We developed this product. We started December 1st. We developed this product in 2.5 months. It's only beta 1. We will be rolling it out for beta testing to these organizations as of next week. Because of my contacts in journalism, because I've worked at the highest levels of journalism in Canada, the US, and the UK, we have been able to access the most senior executives at all of these news organizations. CNN said to us, until you can produce something fail-safe, we're not interested. When they saw this, they said, we've never seen anything like it. BBC was going to pilot this at Current Affairs. They're now expanding it to radio as of next week. ABC News saw a video of this. They've been involved. It's where I worked for 15 years, and I know them. But they saw a video demonstration of what I just showed you. And before it was over, they called me, or they pinged me, and I called them. And their executive director of news gathering had brought in one of the senior executives, and they said, the words were, first of all, holy cow, you've done it. You've cracked the riddle. And then they said, we have one question for you. How soon can you get this out of beta and into the field, and how fast can you scale it? You asked, what keeps you awake at night? For me, the challenge of potentially scaling this, because the next thing they said is, we're fine beta testing this with a couple of people, but you know journalists, they won't keep a secret. We think this will go viral when it hits the newsroom. This is such a big pain point. So what we're doing is we're iterating. We just did UX testing 2 weeks ago. We're refining. This is a complicated interface. Let me be clear. Each of those words on the screen has 10 data points that are unique, plus the audio and the video. What looks like a simple Word document is, in fact, a brick of data. And so creating the UX has been one of our biggest challenges. So we are as of next week, we will start going to early beta tech field testings at the BBC, at CTV Canada, ABC News, and then later to CNN and National Public Radio. We have a number of other news organizations wanting to work with us. I think you can understand we just want to manage expectations at this point and build a more robust platform. Because we've got to get this right. We are the most rigorous vertical for this. Journalists not only need the precision of lawyers, but they have the pressure cooker of time. And I know as a journalist, I've been given new technology that doesn't quite deliver. It gets one chance and maybe a second, and then you say, you know what? I can't afford this. I'm just going to do it the way I did before. And we don't want to make that mistake. So the initial market here is major news organizations. We're B2B. We're creating what we call a prosumer cloud-based model, which can be easily adapted to consumers as well. But the market now initially is these big fish. Once we get this refined, we'll go B2C to freelance journalists, bloggers. And then I suspect every one of you can see an application in your own life. Journalism is just the first vertical. You know, we're talking about marketing, we're talking about academic studies, we're talking about business conference calls, we're talking about speeches like this. You want to put this up, we'll create a Trint player so you can put video of this on your website or your internal corporate site with the audio and searchable, correctable, and exportable if that's what you want, or just to play back. The market really is potentially the world. And by the way, as we get the UX right, we can insert other languages. That's the easy part. Getting an intuitive and responsive UX has been the biggest challenge. I think we are there. I've been working on one of my own radio documentaries on it, and it is there. But we have to be honest. It's beta 1. It's 3 months old. It will take some work to get it absolutely robust. So we're right here now. We've raised £150,000, and I'm here talking to you because I want you to support us. We have another 200,000. We have another 200,000 committed as we move into this phase, and it's to bring us into mobile. It's to bring us to actually roll out and to start to scale. I am the only one in the front office, which is an interesting adventure. And this is where you all come in. We have 150 committed. The Knight Foundation in the US, the remnants of the Knight Ridder media chain, which was one of the biggest in America, $2 billion foundation, supports journalism innovation. They think we're a game changer, and they have said we will match everything you raise in round 2 and beyond, 15% through their investment fund. It's only the third time they've gone out of the US to do this, but they really feel they want to give us the help that they can and endorse us. So that's Trint, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jeff. Linus, coming to you first.
First of all,
you did well. Now, I have to say, Linus, your name came out a bit mangled, but
yeah, well,
you're probably used to that.
I'm very used to that.
Yeah.
My main question is around the technology, actually. I think, first of all, I think I speak for everyone based on how it sounded, that everyone's super impressed. And it was a good pitch as well. On the technology side, can you manage multiple sources? For example, if you have me speaking and you have someone else talking in the background, so you can source that out, number one. Number two, how do you deal with the different levels of noise in the background in general?
So I'm a broadcast journalist, and I know by training that I would never do an interview in a noisy cafe with the music on and people screaming. And I'm the guy who goes in and says, "Can you turn the music off just for 20 minutes while we do this?" There are two variables. The interesting thing about our audio video age is that people can you can use crappy video and we can make it work okay. We can spotlight it, we can freeze it. Very bad audio, I'm not going to kid you, is a problem. If I tried to interview you with a home video camera or my iPhone from here, we won't deliver. Nobody will, to be clear. It's not possible. So the quality of the audio record is critical, and the accent. My experience, I'm just doing a radio documentary that I recorded in Norway. Everybody speaks Norwegian accented English. It depends on the people, but it's all comprehensible. And the thing about Trint is, I can listen to it and correct it, and if it's not relevant, I don't fix it. It would be, I can tell you, because I did a radio documentary, ironically, in Norway last year. It was 12,000 words of manual transcription. It took me literally 16 hours to do it. And at my stage in life, I don't want to do journalism where I'm a stenographer for 2 days. But I do radio documentaries because I love them. I don't make a lot of money off them. This is for National Public Radio and for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And I'm not going to spend the little they pay me on third-party transcription when I still have to proof it and it's still filled with errors.
And the same goes with a new language, obviously, because you want to be able to train it so it can actually pick up any language in theory.
So yes, but you have to understand the algorithms are invented by academic institutions usually or commercial companies. For example, in Qatar right now, they're developing a very advanced algorithm for Arabic. We're not going to go and we're going to license that. We're going to work with them. Right. We're not going to go and do that. That's years of research and very expensive. One of the things that will make us, by the way, stick is that we're developing, CNN actually asked us to do whether we could do this, a unique dictionary for the terms of the daily lexicon of the news agenda. So when Petro Poroshenko talks about a plane crashing in Donetsk, you know that's going to come out, Donetsk will come out as donuts on Siri. Well, by tomorrow, Donetsk will be in our, overnight we'll put it in our lexicon. Now, they don't want that in their main dictionary because when Vodafone uses it for, say, call centers, somebody's going to talk about Doncaster and it'll come out as Donetsk. And so, you have to keep, these dictionaries have to be ring fenced. So we can do that for each vertical as we expand.
Priya.
Yeah, congrats on trying to crack the user experience. I think you guys have done a pretty good job in the short time you had. But I'm curious about the challenges ahead, especially from the UX side, because you seem to be a power user, and I'm glad that your developers have to deal with you as the main customer first. But in terms of user testing, what are you kind of noticing? Because there is a mental model shift that happens from text to speech, and then mapping that to the sound wave file, and in the background, you actually have the video. So there are three different media
Right.
types. that
You're absolutely
dealing
right. And one of the things that we're experimenting with is right now we have two playheads. We have a text head and an audio head. We can combine them, and we're actually, this is part of what UX testing is about. Is it easier? There are arguments on both sides. The most difficult thing is that the reference point for text is Microsoft Word for all of its strengths and weaknesses. So when you want to hit a paragraph, you put your cursor there and you hit enter, enter. Because we want to preserve word alignment for that drag and drop export, and because we have such heavy data points, at this point we don't have that. We create edit boxes as you saw. Now, our developers believe they can actually mimic Word in time, but it's a huge coding challenge. And that is our goal, is to get closer and closer to Word, because that's what people respond to. We had 6 journalists in with an independent UX tester at the offices of DC Thompson, and we sat in one room while she ran tests in the other, and we watched. And the challenge, we hadn't put help, we hadn't put labels on it at that point. And it took time. Once they got it, they became really fast at it. It was very interesting. And that, we intentionally didn't give them a lot of help to see whether just blind they could go in. It's going to take trial and error. But we're finding that if we explain it, people get it. It's not that difficult. But should you click once to create a box or two? Those are the kind of things we're wrestling with.
And I just have a follow-up question, because you did mention journalism in general doesn't pay very well, the current kind of landscape. So in terms of your business model for something like this, would it be working in conjunction with a content management system that is already there in-house, or how are you planning to embed this as a part of the workflow?
So initially, you will be able to we already have it, an uploader. You drag your file in, it goes in. The idea, though, ultimately is to create an API. I mean, CTV Canada, which is one of our test sites, has 1,000 journalists in its national, local newsrooms across Canada, as well as its 3 news networks. They have one central server. They're one of the most sophisticated. It's really interesting. The BBC doesn't have this. Every piece of video shot for them around the world goes to what they call Gateway, custom built. And we can put an API in there. They want to put a Trint button on there. I was talking to them about this last week. I mean, they believe, so CTV pushes 20,000 hours of video a week. It's a small, relatively small organization. I was speaking to the executive vice president of what they call image and sound at CNN in Atlanta last week. Because I'm going to visit them. And I said, by the way, how much footage goes through your servers each week? And he laughed and he said, nobody's ever asked me that. And he said, I actually don't have a precise number, but I can tell you conservatively, it's in the hundreds of thousands of hours per week. And that's the problem. We're all overloaded with content. If a news conference comes in from NASA and a mayor in Phoenix and John Kerry speaking on the runway in Vienna, all of that goes into the server. That's easy. That's the easy part. But to actually find the quotes, to find the moments to isolate, you do it just like we did like it was done in the 70s. You've got to find the footage, and you got to hit play, stop, type. There's just no other way. It just doesn't exist. And I've asked these people, what's the competition? What's the landscape? And CNN said to me last week, listen, there are people out there who will tell you they've cracked this, and I know who they are. And I played on their sites. He said, they're no good. They just don't have it. And it's our granular word alignment. It's the confidence tool. I can stand up in a court of law and tell you, that this is exactly what Linus said, and I have no doubt. And that's the only standard that we can work to. And if you can satisfy us as journalists, a PR company, one of the big ones, got in touch with me last week because one of the journalists who tested with us works for. It's Edelman. And they said, we'd be happy to pilot with you. Can we do beta too? Because his wife works for them. And I said, we're not ready to go outside of journalism. We're really new. But that's the hunger for this. Everyone can see the potential. And the monetization is really simple. At this point, we're charging by the hour. We have costs by the hour. At some point when we hit a critical mass, we can create enterprise systems for significant amounts of money and put it on the internal systems. For example, Bloomberg, at its scale, would want that if they were to buy into this. They wouldn't want to go to our third-party cloud. ABC initially was, a year ago when I first talked to them about this, said, we don't use cloud. Cloud is becoming the language of today. As long as they trust security. Would I say Glenn Greenwald should use this? That would be a call that frankly, I wouldn't if I were. If it were top secret, I mean, I wouldn't put anything on my Guardian server. I would just do it on my laptop. I mean, I think we all know that. But 99.9% of journalism is not, is not WikiLeaks and Snowden. It's much more mundane and prosaic, which doesn't mean we don't have to be conscious of security, but that is the reality.
Jeff, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much. And I'm passing to Carly to introduce Witos.
So moving on from the war zones and journalism to the battleground that is retail, I'm going to introduce you to a company called Witos. Witos have been with us nearly the full term, actually, of Ideal, so nearly 18 months. In that time, their solution, which is essentially leveraging the wireless infrastructure within buildings, particularly in the retail sector, and putting analytics onto that so that retailers, for example, can get that much closer to the general behavior of their consumers. We all reach for our phone. I'm sure you know this already, at least on average 100 times a day. And if you can capture and make that into something meaningful as a retailer, in terms of offers or those sort of things, then there is something to be gained in terms of more revenue and more opportunities to engage with your consumer. So Witos have been very successful in terms of some of the programs we've run here. They recently became Cisco compatible, which is like the Intel inside within Cisco. So they are a preferred solution partner, which is not an easy task to get through. There's a independent verification testing that they've had to go through with their solution with some of our technology to achieve that. And just last week, Amy was on stage with the CIO of John Lewis and our own CEO in a keynote in Hamburg, speaking to about 100 CIOs from around Europe. So we've seen fantastic progress. I'm sure you're going to enjoy what she's got to say.
Thanks, Tom. I think it's almost afternoon, so I'll try and make this a little shorter than I normally would. My name is Amy Lai. I'm the founder and CEO of Witos. As Tom mentioned, we've been here at Ideal since the very beginning, so it's been a great space for us to actually build out our concept into a working and production product, but at the same time to experiment with a whole bunch of very willing startups and events like yourself. So today we're hosting a little bit of the service, and I'll walk you through how that actually works. The space that we play in is around wireless and mobility, but one of the reasons why we got into this space is trying to make online much more connected when you're in a local space or a venue. We call this a local space. It could be any kind of local space, but from our point of view, it's trying to increase the value of being online so that the venue itself can have better bottom line gains, even top line revenue generating opportunities, but at the same time to use that insight to be able to generate then much more meaningful action taking. So we have two parts to our solution. You'll recognise this is a local space everywhere. This is where I landed in London. It's a terminal in many of the airports that we have. And like most of us, like we have been observing you in this room, we're glued to our screens. And actually that's probably more around 150 times a day that we're interacting with our devices. But the local space doesn't have a very good idea what we're actually doing on it. And lots of the things that we're doing and we're touching on a day-to-day basis is listed here: emailing, texting, interacting with the internet, checking out news and alerts like we are doing in this space. But again, the local space is not very clear what we're doing. This could be anywhere: a transport hub, an airport, it could be a retailer space, a workspace, really any space that's trying to deliver a more connected experience, or what the people in the wireless space call the last mile of internet connectivity. And I wanted to share a little bit what people are actually doing in these spaces to create a better connection with the consumer. In spaces like the ones I've just shared with you, Wi-Fi is typically considered as connectivity to the internet. And we have some examples here of the normal landing page where people are asked to provide your email address or asked to bring out your credit card to be able to connect. So it's a static experience. And typically, it's asking you to register or provide your own personal email or personal information so that we can or the space can market to you at a later point, and at the same time maybe even monetize on that experience and charge you $3.95 for an hour. And I think in today's usage of the internet and connectivity, we are starting to find that this is maybe a little too much of an ask. So what are the options? In a space like this, we believe that there's time for a new business model or set of business models to be able to empower local spaces. Our space, or where we play in terms of this market space, is around generating a model around greater contextual reach, greater reach than just an application itself, but also we're very used to websites that understand and create dynamic experiences for us. But at the same time of that, to make it dynamic for every individual. So we're talking about mass customization. So every experience is an opportunity to market in a slightly different way to the user's visit reason. So what's the purpose of the reason? Most of us here are here to listen to us to pitch today, but in a shopping context, that might be the difference between a shopper and a companion. And we've had a chance to do some of those experiments with some trials. And build out a product called a smarter Wi-Fi hotspot, where it combines two elements. So one is around behavioral analytics, real-time analytics, to be able to generate insights about what consumers are doing in a large proportion or a large segmentation view of understanding what the purpose is for your visit in a space today. And the other part of that is the prediction side, where we're trying to understand how to best serve the content to consumers to be able to consume that on their devices or even consume that on other digital interfaces. It might be, for example, a network digital signage screen, which would then be able to then imagine how to better serve you if you're, for example, in an airport, the difference between a business traveller and a leisure traveller. And those dynamic playlists would be much more possible. So today, we estimate this to be about a $12 billion market space. It's the intersection of the wireless LAN market space as well as business intelligence or big data. As Tom mentioned, we have just recently acquired our Cisco compatible status, so we have integrated and have been technically validated to provide an integration as a service on top of Cisco's enterprise wireless offering. We're also powered by SAP HANA, so we leverage the technology to do real-time analytics as well as processing transactional and analytical workloads at the same time. We can visualize those in slightly different ways in real time and do real-time reporting. So these are some snapshots of our application itself. It's easy to access as a user, so there's only a one-click opt-in that authenticates the user into a secure network. It's contextually aware, so if you're upstairs or downstairs, you get a slightly different content repository. There are some advanced features that we can actually integrate into this, which we have done in some trial environments where we can leverage on a mobile web app services like the phone's camera feature that can then go into a barcode onto an e-commerce store, and then we can understand the behaviors of an individual after that. So a lot of retailers are very concerned about showrooming and the extent of that. How are people browsing outside of their own brand? And this gives us an ability then to create a secure profile of an individual to understand in big terms, are they more likely to be the shopper, ready to buy and much more ready to interact with the offer and or a discount, or are they looking really for more inspiration? Then what we also have today is an ability to geolocate internally. So a wireless network today gives us some granularity about where people are moving in a venue. And from that point of view, Journey Analytics plays a big role to determine the context of an individual. We then have built an easy way for actually content management to be managed. So we fetch content. Today we're doing so on a Facebook feed to be able to retarget that in real time in the different zones where it makes sense, so that content is much more highly relevant. It's for any device, so it's platform agnostic in that way, being a web app. And then we have also developed a bunch of flexible data sets. So in an organization, in large enterprises, they're very interested to have slightly different views of the report. So we have common data source to be able to visualize the difference between what an online marketing manager might be interested in versus someone on the shop floor, a department level manager in a zone of a building. Today we've generated some customer revenues putting out our service in the field. So these are real examples of where we've run our service today. And I just wanted to give you some example of how our service has then supported some of the business models that they're starting to rethink about. So this was an experience in Level 39 that we ran a few weeks back. It's an event much similar to this. We had 72% of people actually connect. So this is without downloading an app on its own. So it's creating an opportunity to leverage the infrastructure to do much more in terms of content management. And then there were 15 interactions on average. So just to give you an idea, today there are, I think, 89 connected devices up to this point. On average, 40% of you have actually interacted with the captive portal itself, on average 5 units of interactions. So this is comparable to, for example, ad serving on a display advertising on Google or some other web or media distributor. And at that event, we were paid for that, so that was £250 to run the event. So on average, 170 is the value that an event would offer. So if you can imagine rolling this out in somewhere like a Mobile World Congress where there are 1,900 exhibitors, this becomes a very interesting model for a local space to try and monetize in a different way that same wireless infrastructure. We also did some work with Cisco Consulting. So through the summer and up to the end of the Christmas trading, they asked us to put a Wi-Fi captive portal into one of their stores. We had on average 3.6 interactions, so much lower. So it's very contextually sensitive in terms of what people are interested in, but that's okay. What was more interesting is anything that was self-service from that in terms of a deal or coupon had a much higher likelihood to transact. And we did a couple of trials around that. So 4% redemption was one of the numbers on a campaign that we tried. That equates to about 65p for a connected customer. And we've estimated that that would be around 10 times in 2018. So it really scales in terms of users onboarding, utilization rates, and how interesting that content is that you can get users to interact with. So those are some examples. Today we're in the market for our seed round of funding, 750,000. We've already got a commitment of 120 and also a conditional interest of 350,000 pounds. We've got some beta trials. We're version 1 and patent pending in terms of our solution. Where we'll use the money is in co-selling, go-to-market partnerships. So we've recently signed a co-selling deal also with SAP, where we are doing a revenue sharing model, targeting customers in the UK, across Western Europe, and also a sales presence in the US. And then in 36 months to really get out there in mass scale, reaching 100 over enterprise-type customers and 20,000 outlets. So that's me. We are open to any questions if you have any.
Thanks, Amy. Quick questions for Amy. Start with the panel, perhaps. And that gentleman over here.
This is really interesting. But what on a kind of macro level, what do you think the kind of pervasiveness of 3G, 4G, etc., will have on the usefulness of this? So when people have cheaper access to data.
Sure. I mean, that's a really interesting question. I think Wi-Fi and Cisco have come out with a report to describe that by 2018, more than 50% of internet traffic will actually be on Wi-Fi networks. I think there will also be competition with mobile operators to try and take a land grab of small spaces. So, for example, here in this venue, it's subterranean, so mobile signal is not so good. So some of the options here is either you go with one provider and put in repeater cells or small cells to create coverage, but we're sitting in an audience where there may be half a dozen different providers supporting us. So then the space has an option. Do we go with Wi-Fi or do we go with mobile? Yeah.
I have a question about how do you compare what you've developed in terms of the patent spending and iBeacon technology, because in terms of location-based? So I was looking at how the iBeacons work as well. And I was curious how you compare or differentiate yourself in terms of location-based data, real-time data, and targeting that to customers.
Sure. So we get the location from access points or the wireless infrastructure itself. The iBeacon would enrich the location positioning accuracy. Today, obviously, it's far more precise than a wireless network can be. But the beacon itself doesn't have any connectivity, so the app still needs to communicate on a network, which is typically the same question that we had just earlier. How do you then get online and connected to the internet in venues as broad as, or big and dense as retailers and airports, for example?
I had a question about the replicability of the customer acquisition process, because what you've described, it seems like there's some setup, there's variability in the way that you have the business arrangements with each customer. What do you think that looks like at scale?
At scale, it's through channel partnerships for us, ideally. We are talking to Cisco's partner or channel partner network as well, and had a chance to meet with several already in terms of network provisioning providers. And from that point of view, I think it's going to be a partnership model where service providers like ourselves offering value-added services in partnership with networks can go to market together to make propositions.
You might be part of a mall or something like that, in that kind of...
Yes, we could well be a part of a service in a mall or even a city. So everything scales in terms of, you know, a product, a storefront, you know, a wide area, coverage area.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Hi, so I'm going to introduce Health Connected from UCL. We've been working with them for 2 years now, and they're one of the few companies when they tell you they're going to do something, they actually go out and get it done. We're really proud to be working with them because they're covering something that's much needed in dementia care and using media assets in a very innovative way. So I'll let Simon come in.
Good morning to you all. I think we're all aware of the impact of dementia, but the figures are still stunning. 44 million people around the world at any one time have dementia. 150 million family members are impacted, and there's millions and millions of carers. Dementia costs more than, to the world, more than heart conditions, diabetes and cancer combined. It's high profile now. Winning an Oscar doesn't hurt. But when we experienced dementia, my partner and I were shocked to find that even with those statistics, there is almost no software in the front line of care. There's almost no support. So we decided to do something about it. We self-funded building a prototype and successfully trialed it, and then built a team around us that could bring our plans to fruition. My partner Etienne is a UX expert, ex of Inmarsat, Endemol, lastminute.com. I'm an ex-geologist turned serial entrepreneur. And then we have a team around us of experts in various relevant fields, from dementia through to digital expertise. Barry Kermish, the ex-head of Royal Mail. So with a team, we then realized the best way to find out whether what we were seeking to build would be relevant would be to actually go to our end users, go to industry. So we approached care home owners, domiciliary care group owners, heads of industry in the healthcare sector, and asked them to invest, and they did. So we now have investment to build and launch the Remind Me care system, which will launch in May. And importantly, we have an advisory board of experts from within the industry who've been helping us build exactly what is required. And what is required? Well, the system we've built, which is unique, basically is portable care. It's a system that makes it possible for someone with dementia to enroll and use the system, which I'll explain in a minute, and have it then stay with them as they take the dementia journey, so that their family and friends can use it. Domiciliary carers, when they become necessary, can use Remind Me. Formal carers, care homes, daycare centers, memory clinics can use it. And at the end of the journey, the hospital ward can use it. So basically what Remind Me is doing is it's building up a repository of knowledge of the person with dementia. It's collecting information from family members, from all sources, and holding it and learning. But it's also running various systems, various entertainments, various activities, which it's also able to collect information from them being run. For example, we use the internet substantially to collect information that is bespoke to the profile of the person with dementia. So how does it work? Well, let's take reminiscence. Reminiscence is a principal form of therapy in the dementia care world. And someone will be using Remind Me, and they will enroll, and they will either themselves or their carers provide information about themselves. And then they can run various activities. Here you see a family running a reminiscence session activity remotely. So the lady here is in a care home, but her family are able to interact with her remotely to run a reminiscence session, to basically engender communication by viewing subjects, by reviewing media and content that is specifically relevant to her profile, to her known characteristics. So the way we do this is we collect information through a simple question and answer process, and that information is automatically presented within a profile center. Topics are presented. Those images are automatically accessed from the internet to represent those topics. And the profile center is continually learning more and more about the person. From do they like tea, do they like coffee, where were they born, did they have children? A range of knowledge is acquired over time. And of course that knowledge makes it possible to deliver better person-centered care, whether a carer, a care home or a hospital ward. So with the profile center now populated with knowledge, basic knowledge that's been acquired from family or the person with dementia who's been recently diagnosed, a session can be run. Running a session, literally press a button and up will come images that reflect the person with dementia's life, their history, their background. Here it's a person who lived in London in the 1950s. Then you can move in any direction, forward, backwards, change the topic through simple controls. You can change words if you really want to move on. And the image is then moved on automatically to a wartime scene because that person was in London during the Blitz. And as you can imagine, the session basically is an exploration of content that is relevant to that person. And the person with dementia will respond positively or negatively. And if they respond positively, then an email will be sent out to the care circle asking for more information as to why their family member responded positively to that image. And that's important because it may be that they can then upload more photographs about the war period that person, that they went through. And that knowledge can be very important in the care process to carers. So at the end of a session, the profile center is updated. The importance of what we've got, the proprietary algorithms that we have, is that they're perpetually learning more about the person with dementia. So the strength of the system is that it increases the care circle. The big issue now in dementia care for those being cared for at home is isolation. They are cut off from the world. Connectivity, they have difficulty connecting with remote family. And of course, stigma is still a big one, even after the recent high-profile nature of dementia. Still, stigma post-diagnosis is a big issue. Remind Me makes it possible for someone with dementia and their primary carer to contact remote family, talk about what has been diagnosed, and to build a means of post-diagnosis care. And as I'm sure you're aware, the need for post-diagnosis care is a big issue with the government right now. The government is on a mission, a rightful mission, to maintain care in the community for longer. It's on a mission to achieve earlier diagnosis. It's on a mission to find ways to provide post-diagnosis care and interaction, which there really are very little at the moment. Remind Me provides a very effective mechanism for bringing all those parties together and achieving those ends, which is why we're in discussions with the likes of NIHR, Public Health England, and why we're getting so much response. For example, just to give you a measure of that response, we're not targeting the NHS because it's a difficult market, but we've been approached by 4 hospitals already, and we're trialling in UCLH, the Royal Free, and Royal Berkshire Hospital. So we're getting a lot of demand before we've launched already, a lot. And here are some of the organizations that we are working with and have been working with. One of the things we did, having got our funding, was to go back out to industry at a high level and ascertain exactly what they wanted. We went to the Priory, we went to the head of Barchester, XL Care, the big care home groups, and said, what do you want in this tool? Or do you even want it? And they did, they wanted it, but they came back to us and said that they wanted even more. They wanted increased functionality beyond what we were originally intending to do. So we've been working with them to define exactly what Remind Me should do. And that's one of the reasons we're here today asking for money, because we have increased the range of functionality that we'll deliver in May to satisfy their requirements. So we've had to beef up the capability of the system. So we're working with Bluebird Care. These are a mix of investors and supporters and entities that we are currently trialing with. As I say, we launch in May. We're looking for money also because demand has been high. Just to give you an example, in the last 4 months, we've had 6,000 connections built up in LinkedIn. These are care entities that want to trial our system. So we realize we need to move fast. What I've been talking about is B2B, except at the beginning of that dementia journey, where it's people being cared for at home. So we're launching into the B2B sector, but we will in December launch into the B2C sector. And the B2C sector will be a global launch. It'll be freemium based. We're launching in May on an annual subscription basis to formal care entities. But in December, we'll be launching B2C to, as I say, a freemium audience. Literally the world, 44 million people. So we need to prepare for that, which is why we're looking to raise 100,000 as interim funding to assist us prepare for that next stage. We're having to move faster than we'd originally wanted to do because we're getting call after call, email after email from America, from Australia already on a B2C front asking for information. So it pays to speed up. The B2C functionality will be beyond that of what we've built, the B2B. It will include other elements such as management tools, daily management tools for people with dementia and their carers to assist them manage their day, global connectivity so that families and carers can match up with people around the world to build a community so they reduce their isolation, and importantly, a community builder, something we've been asked to do by care homes, by daycare centres, by everybody basically, a means for someone with dementia, because we know about them, we have their profile, to be able to know what's going on locally, to have an ability to know that because they love Elvis, they should be aware that down the road there's a restaurant holding an Elvis night. That sort of information is just not available right now. And my brother, one of the reasons I got into this, my brother was, for his sins, a Chelsea supporter, and he cared for my mother for years. He had no idea that just down the road from him was a rabid Chelsea supporters fan group. He should have connected with them. He never did. So I think he should have. We are putting together a mechanism where it's possible for the system to know what is happening locally. This is our roadmap. To repeat, we are launching in May. We'll be on Crowdcube in April to raise our 100,000 that we require. Obviously, our existing investors are putting more money in, but we will use Crowdcube to raise the balance. And once we have launched and gained commercial traction, we will look for a second round to build the B2C version. We estimate that it'll be around 200K that we need, because we think the commercial traction will be strong. We have all the care home groups wanting to see what we've got. And if they were all to roll out, that would be 700 care homes. So it's looking very strong at the moment. And of course, one of the joys, if you like, of what we're doing is that we've built a system that's very iterative. Iterable? Iterative? We'll go for iterative. Very iterative in that it can be used in many different healthcare sectors. We've started with dementia, but it's equally usable by anyone over the age of 50, 55. Kids enjoy it. It's going to be, we believe, highly relevant in the world of autism, in the world of childcare. So what we're looking to do is to basically establish a global brand. I'm not going to stop talking, a bit more. We believe that we will be able to, within the year, establish a global brand that can achieve significant social impact globally, as I say, but at the same time be highly profitable for investors. So I look forward to taking some questions. Thank you.
Can you walk us through the B2C model? Because I mean, I don't know the market that well, but I'm assuming that on the hospital side and the caretaker side, it might be hard to get funding for it. But on the B2C side, you basically can do whatever you want. You can have people in that care circle to, let's say, children or siblings to pay for it entirely, right?
Well, there's a few questions in there, but we started off in the B2B sector because we wanted to have our system, which is complex. We spent a year building algorithms that are capable of profiling and acquiring data. We wanted to have it have recognition, and the only way to get that recognition is from the care industry. So we started in that sector. We've got massive response now, but we need commercial traction. So we will go into the B2C sector, which is actually the biggest sector because it's global. If you do the maths on 44 million paying parties, not all will pay because we're giving it free, giving it away. We're marketing it on a freemium basis. we project at least a Spotify take-up of 10 million. No one's done anything like this. So we think that, yes, 10% of that volume that we manage to achieve will pay, but the cost will be spread throughout the family members. One of our conundrums was how to reach that isolated carer person with dementia couple. How do you market to them? And then, the light bulb went off. It seems obvious now, but in fact, one markets to the family members. You market to the 35-year-old reading City AM on the tube into work, who wants to do more for his parents, and they're quite easy to reach through social media, and they have the money to pay for it. So we basically will charge £200 for premium services. And I'm not even sure I've answered your question, did I?
No, you did.
Yeah,
Because I think that's the really cool part here.
Yes.
And around that, can you split that cost between, if you're two siblings, you want to...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
One of them's got to pay, but the whole process and the reason we're having to move fast is because the word is already out. We've already got people we're working with who've told friends in America and Australia. The word of mouth is going to be very powerful for us. And so yes, they'll work together, they'll hear about it together, and one person will pay, or run it free for a while.
Right. Cool.
Do you have any other questions?
Obviously, an extremely interesting and probably personal area to work in. So apologies if it seems a bit pointed question, but if it's the aggregation or collection of imagery that helps sort of stimulate or help them recollect things that they've experienced in their life, and that's a sort of, is that a universally accepted beneficial process, and therefore you're not going to get pulled from pillar to post by all the other care homes who say no, it's music, or no, it's so-and-so, or we need other sort of mediums to make it a beneficial sort of experience for that person being cared for?
It's an extremely good question and a very complex one to answer. Reminiscence therapy is the principal therapy used in dementia care. And it has no, according to the researchers and papers that have been published, no impact on slowing down cognitive decline. But what it does do is provide the only mechanism for communication, for interaction. And caring for someone with dementia, certainly in the home care environment, even in the care home environment, is as much as about the carer as it is the person with dementia. Because a person with dementia needs to have an interaction with someone that is positive, that is informed. And reminiscence therapy is the only way that can be done at the moment. And there are no systems that can do it in the way that we do it, because it is so bespoke. The content that the carer and the person with dementia are viewing relates to them, and it engenders more conversation than normally happens. And that can be converted to an ROI in terms of carer management in a care home. For a domiciliary carer who's got very little time when they come in and visit, it's critical that they know the person with dementia. This system can provide quick knowledge of the person with dementia. So it's a good question, but we are providing basically a disruptive opportunity to use the knowledge of the person with dementia in a way that's never been used before.
So it's a mechanism to generate awareness for them, basically.
It is, yes. Knowledge that continually grows through use of the system all the way through their care process, and which makes it easier for carers to deliver better care.
One last question.
Can I ask a very boring financial question?
Yes.
What sort of market cap are you running at now for the 100K raise?
What is our valuation right now? We will be valued when we go into Crowdcube at 1.5 million. We have no commercial traction, we have massive demand. We have a system that's been proven at trials, and we have an extensive range of partners. We have something that we know will be of demand.
That's basic or fully diluted?
The share price that we'll be putting it out at will be £1.25. That gives us a valuation of just over 1.5 million. So as I say, but when we go through to the second round, obviously there'll be a transition because we'll have commercial traction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. So last up from the Cisco team, we have an organisation called Real Status, who've probably been with us around about 6 months now. So as we move from the world of routing transactions and applications in hardware more to a software-orientated infrastructure, clearly the routing of transactions, particularly in, say, the financial sector, becomes a very complex environment to manage. Real Status have a very unique solution for that environment and the management of that environment, using 3D and some gaming technology as well. And I'm going to introduce to you Stace Hipperson, who is the CEO and founder of Real Status.
Thanks. Okay, so I'll try and keep this relatively quick. I know we're running over time. So yeah, Real Status, my name's Stace Epperson, and we do cloud visibility and management. There we go. And what we're trying to do is actually solve some issues around the new style of IT. I'll just go. As you can see from this picture here, the new style of IT is actually, whilst it gives you a lot of benefits, reduces time to roll out new services, etc., it actually gets quite complicated pretty easily. Virtualization started off the new style about 2004, 2005 with VMware. And now, as Tom said, this virtualization is actually happening to the network. And what happens is actually you get a lot more different, a lot more instances, a lot more entities roaming around the network, and it actually becomes quite difficult to monitor and manage. And as you can see from this, this little diagram here, that's just one system. So things get pretty complicated, especially when things start to move around. And what this does, it creates a lot of low visibility for the operations teams. Now, in operations teams, my background is networking, working for large ISPs like Deutsche Telekom, BT, that kind of thing. And really what you want, and what I wanted to create, was an end-to-end system where I could see what was going on, right from the applications right down to the network. And this, in the new style of IT, is actually allowing us to do that because we can actually talk programmatically to all of these items. And I'm hoping, yes, great. So really what we've done is we've brought gaming technologies to the IT. Okay. So we've got some voice on here. So I'll try and do a bit of a voice over here. So what we've done is we've brought gaming technologies to IT. When you consider gaming and phones, the amount of visual information you get straight away is outstanding. It's really easy to understand and it's really clear. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring that to the IT estate. So it's in a 3D environment. Oh, sorry, I'm going a bit. It's in a 3D environment, and the reason we've done that for scale. New IT, you've got tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of entities all roaming around, spun up, spun down, and it's really difficult to monitor and manage. And you can see actually the large scale, Google's done this, AWS has done this, Azure has done this. They use this kind of technologies. But they've, of course, got tens of thousands of people trying to do this thing. We're bringing that new technology to allow normal companies to monitor, manage very easily, very quickly. So, yeah, company status. We've got initial traction. We've had some sales in the cloud area and also in the defense area. It's a freemium model. People can just download and try up to 50 entities, and that could be 50 switches or 50 VMs, that kind of thing. We sell currently via channel and via direct, and we're doing that at the moment because obviously when you start out, you want to get as much feedback as you can. We need to be directly connected to those users, but we also partner with Cisco, HP, and we've got a burgeoning one with Spirent now, and they do a lot of test kit that large telcos use. So, yeah, we're 4 people. We lean and mean. We've had a little bit of a journey along our way. We've been going about 4 years now. But as I said, we're starting to get that initial traction, getting that feedback since we went to the freemium model end of last year. We're not looking for funding right now or external funding, but we will be looking to raise an A round later on in the year, November, December. And there we go, that's me. So as I said, I'd keep it as short as possible. If you've got any questions, please do. And I'll be upstairs after this with the laptop, and I can actually show you how we do things and why we do things. Thank you.
Hang on, quickly, got a question for Stacey. Paul.
So is it a visibility tool, or are you commissioning, decommissioning services?
It's visibility and management and control. Everything now has an API that we can poll, we can get that data back, but now we can actually push the config to the end devices as well. So old style management platforms, generally it's just all monitoring and you can't, and the orchestration did that on the side. Now we can pull, but we can also push it down.
What architectures are you
So currently we're hooking into Amazon Web Services, OpenStack, some software-defined networking products, Open Daylight and HP VAN. And in our next release, which is due out in a couple of months, we'll be doing VMware, things like Docker, which is the new hotness. And we also have a REST API, so people can push to us. Because we know we can't integrate with everything, and every company has their own proprietary database, but they can push that to us, and they can pull from us as well, because we kind of become not a CMDB, but a data lake, if you will.
Yeah, I have a question. So part of, especially large organizations, right, the actual visualization probably doesn't bring anything because a person, I don't think, can look at, kind of massive maps of 3D networks, right? Are you doing anything in terms of analytics to kind of aid the the customer? Because the visual bit doesn't necessarily help, right?
Well,
in that complex environment.
I know what you mean. So yeah, if you've got 100,000 things, you're not going to see 100,000 things, and we've found up to about 10,000 is what you're going to get. But it's the way you portray it initially. So it's that initial view. We're grouping and that kind of thing. So many things can equal one thing. We enable people to visually analyze it. We don't have the analytics yet, but we're having that relatively soon. So once we've knocked down the analytics, we've got the monitoring, we've got the management bit, then the analytics come behind there because we've aggregated that data. So then we'll be doing that.
In a high security environment,
yep.
So critical national infrastructure,
yep.
How can you help with compliance, reporting, visibility, just finding the holes?
Yeah, it's an interesting use case. We've had a couple of, one here, defense, and in the States, basically have the same use case. I have a whole lot of things. Some of them are moving around, and I want to be able to see how it's the security in general. What's the security like? How do I actually access, see the relationships? So we have the map, and then you've got a security data set, say, for example, intrusions, that type of thing. We can then overlay that on top of that, so then you can see where you can heat map it, and you can also maybe zoom in. They want to see all of their estate with the overlay of security so they can get their compliance and react quickly. And you'll actually see DARPA's looking into this as well. I saw it the other day. They're spending, I think it's $125 million to make something similar to this in a sense, but what they're just trying to get massive amount of data and show that in a visual way, because we're very good at pattern matching, right? That's what we're evolved for. And algorithms are great once you've coded them, but trying to get an algorithm to find new things is very difficult. And so we enable it in that space.
One quick question.
Yep.
So do you have alert systems?
Yeah, so we pull the data in from those alert systems.
Yeah.
And then we visually show those on the topology.
Yes. So you still need human beings on the ground to actually go and fix the problem, or?
At the moment, we haven't put the automation in.
It's not automated.
No.
So okay.
That's the next step. So, evolution-wise.
So you've got 3D, almost like reminds me of a neural network, where now you've got a network that's coming alive.
Yeah.
And living rather than this dead thing that human beings have to run around like headless chickens to look after.
Yeah. So it gets live feeds from all of these different data sources.
Yeah. Okay.
Gives that to the user. Next thing is, once we've got all that, is the analytics, and then also the automation, because it's just a basic if-then.
That's when it will be.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, really useful. Yeah.
Yeah. When
it's useful now, but I think it's half there. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the traction we're getting is, as I said, there's a lot of low visibility out there with virtualization, and we have a lot of interest from the software-defined networking space because the tooling's not there, and they're starting to realize that, how do I manage this? This is getting really hard. And so that's why, we're getting a lot of interest and traction in those areas.
Good job, Stace. Thanks.
All right. Okay, thank you.
We now have our last company that will be coming up, PyMapping. We came across them via the MIT REAP program, where we were really impressed with their track record. I'm going to keep it short.
Is that my key? Keep it short.
Good afternoon. I appreciate that you all hanging around for so late in the day. It's a long morning. I do appreciate that. And it's not long, and I've seen the sandwiches upstairs. They look pretty good. So I'll crack on and give you a heads up about this business. This is a business called PyMapping. This is my third business. And what we do here is we make it possible for road users to make better routing decisions over our complex network. I'll give you a really good example. If you have a sports car, and it's a really nice, beautiful sports car, it's got its own sat-nav, most probably built into it. But the sat-nav takes you where the sat-nav wants to take you, and you may say, actually, I want to avoid all the speed bumps. And so really, for you as a user, you say, actually, I want a journey for myself, plus all the other stuff. And so what we're doing is using that sort of design ability. You are a vehicle, you're a type of person, and you want to get routed across the network the way you want to. And we did this to good effect for the Olympic Games. We consumed tons and tons of data, and we made it possible for athletes, VIPs, to navigate across the complex network as it changed to suit that particular journey, get them to the start line. And we also currently run the Transport for London Freight Journey Planner, which again is consuming lots of live data and information and giving routing solutions for all different types of freight logistics companies. What we're doing is taking our London smart city model, consuming a lot of data, and delivering it on a national scale. What the issues about cities is you can't really deliver a decent, scalable solution unless you go national, because most road users don't just come to London, they have a national offering. And so we've taken the whole smart city solution and delivered that on a national basis, and we've created this national portal where we're consuming a lot of data and selling that to the freight industry. So basically, we've created for the first time the only portal in the country that delivers freight routing as a go-to portal for the whole UK. So basically, it involves having the portal as a platform. We're consuming lots of local authority data. So unlike the Waze, we are consuming as much data as we can, but predominantly is about the road authorities, the guys who influence and change things on the road. We have had many years of experience working with those authorities and consuming a lot of their data, and live data and our own data. And we have built basically a enterprise solution. So this is a web-based solution that also feeds into a mobile type solution. So it's a bit like a Waze, but for the whole national platform and for the whole of the freight sector. We already have a SaaS model for London. It's for driving big trucks, HGVs across London. We have over 450 customers paying for this particular service. We have over an 80% retention rate in terms of sustaining those customers. And those customers are like BP, Superdrug, Wincanton, Sainsbury's, really, really big players who go, they just love it. And none of our customers have had any penalty charge since using our system. Other penalties, G4S is another customer of ours. They spend £1 million in parking fines. We've reduced that down to £500,000 parking fines within 6 months just by better information, better retiming their deliveries. So hopefully you won't see that sort of behavior going on. The big one that's personal for me is we've built and we're building a construction logistics route approver tool. And what we do there is we basically prevent trucks making left turns by time of day across cycle networks during the commuter hours coming into work. And so part of this policy here is creating an ability to sell to the site and all the subcontractors delivering to the site to minimize by time of day certain turn restrictions. The last 2 deaths in this in this city this year have been as a consequence of trucks turning left. So our customers, what we've learned through a lot of work we've done is even though we have a huge platform, everyone consumes it in different sort of ways. Our biggest customer at the moment is Laura. She's our transport manager. We have over sort of 400 of them. And they worry about trucks and they worry about their drivers. And the key is about providing the tools for those guys. Now, Yorkie may not even speak English, but he just needs a navigation tool to be able to drive across anywhere in the UK, park anywhere in the UK or any particular city. And we need to give him the navigation aid to do that. Now, obviously, those two are linked up. The future is, I believe, is this route API bit. A lot of integrators say, I don't want all the maps, I don't want the stuff, just give me the sodding route and put the route into my system that I've already got. And so the route API is quite cool approach. We've already built that. Now in London, there's 281,000 commercial freight journeys in London as it is today. If we can deliver a portion of those, that'd be great on a per journey, per price model. Where we're going to next is that we've already been selected by Canary Wharf Group on the Integrated Transport Program for Cognicity. And Cognicity is about, please make Canary Wharf a really smart ecosystem in terms of smart transport. As I said, we have a fantastic opportunity to work with those guys to say, actually, how can we do this? And the construction logistics tool I was talking about, we will make that happen over the next couple of months. It's amazing. So we have now a fantastic partner. We have an environment where we can really deliver this technology and start to scale it. We've already deployed, as part of an R&D project with the University of Leicester, our first international portal in the city of Bordeaux, which is sort of quite pertinent because the big World Congress for Intelligent Transport Systems will be hosted in that city as well. In terms of some of the advisors and support, we have got support and experts from smart cities, technology. We've got experts across the industry and certainly experts in terms of helping us with the whole corporate finance side as well. In terms of the fundraise and what we're trying to do is we've already raised about 300K in the last 18 months. And we're looking to sort of wrap up a deal with different investors. My bank have promised me about 100K if we get additional funding, so we can leverage a bit of bank debt as well. But we're really looking for partners to help us facilitate the bigger chunk as well. So we know that, particularly around the construction logistics work, we can really grow phenomenally. It's a very exciting space, and we do need the partners to help us facilitate that growth. And we've been invited by New York to say, you know, what we're doing in London, they want over there as well. So once we can sort of really nail the whole UK and London, we sort of really need to sort of get going. So I'll leave it there, short and sweet. One thing I'll leave you with a point to note is that we're going to be having autonomous vehicles around our streets pretty soon. And the question is, what type of technology will be used to navigate those vehicles? If you think about it, is there's no drivers, so they'll be needing quite a lot of data, a lot of intelligence. And so the stuff that we're doing, pioneering route API type stuff, you know, I believe is going to be quite important for all navigation. And I do believe even Uber bought their mapping and navigation company for an undisclosed sum. So it's becoming quite important for them. And what we've got now is the equivalent, but for the whole of the freight industry across the UK, and hopefully we can deploy that across other parts of the world as well. It's a very exciting space. Thank you very much.
In terms of what makes your technology defensible from someone like Google, is it kind of variety of data sources? Is it the algorithmic interpretation of those? What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that it is about the data. We spend a long time working with the various local authorities and transport authorities to get the transport-related sort of data. You know, Google is a mainstream sort of player. We've competed with Google in so many different innovative type work. So for us, it's about being niche and being expert in our sort of space. The routing algorithm that we use is complex. It's very different to the way that Google do it. And because we did it for the Olympics in terms of scaling to consume lots of live data, I think we have a pretty good head start on that. But you're right, you know, we got some patterns out there in terms of some of the routing stuff. But a lot of it is about data and sort of land grab for that particular niche market.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Freddie. Wow, well, that has been an absolute roller coaster ride. I think you'll agree with me. There's been some fantastic pitches there. We've got some really deep, interesting tech plays going on. We've also got some hugely creative opportunities here, but I think you'll all agree that some really interesting innovation. Now, I am hugely appreciative for all of you staying here in your seats. We are a little bit over time, but we do have a real unique opportunity here. We are absolutely delighted to be joined by Nick Brisbourne, who is the founder and managing partner of Forward Partners, and who, if any of you read his blog, The Equity Kicker, it's probably one of the most well-read blogs, certainly in Europe. This chap has had experience both in the European VC market, but also out in Silicon Valley. He really does have a voice for what's happening here in Europe, and we're delighted to welcome him to the stage right now. Nick, over to you.
Thank you. After an introduction like that, it can only really go downhill, can't it? So I was also a bit worried about this talk this morning because, as you can hear, I'm a little bit croaky. I've got a bit of a cough, but I've had a fisherman's friend. So my mother-in-law was staying with us last night, and she suggested that it's a top tip from her husband is have a fisherman's friend, and then you don't cough during a talk. Now it tasted horrible, so she may have been messing with me, but hopefully we'll be okay. So how do I click here? Is that it? Yes. So we're running rather late, and I've had one of the sandwiches already, but I'm sure that you're all keen to get up there. So I'm going to rattle through this in 15 minutes. So I was asked to talk about a little bit about my background, and then where we're going with financing, and actually trends in building businesses more generally. So I'm going to fire through the Nick Brisbourne stuff super fast because I think the other bit's more interesting. So that's me in a nutshell, I was cute once, maybe, one photo. And I'd I was, running snack shops at school, and then running parties, picked up, and there was a little Chelsea reference earlier on. I picked up a Chelsea habit at some point. And then I got into meditation a couple of years ago. And when I asked my dad the other day, what did I want to be when I grew up? And he goes, I'm not sure. I think mostly just rich. And so this is the path. But if I follow this meditation thing to its logical conclusion, I'll be giving it all away soon. People often ask me how I got into venture. So I think that the headline is I was lucky. My timing was super good. So I had a couple of years as a management consultant at Gemini, which was at that point a good consulting firm, and then joined a startup called Operis. After a year or two at Operis, realised that wasn't going to be the place where I could really hit it big. And it's a lovely company. They still are. I had lunch with the founder the other day, but just wasn't quite scale enough for me. So I decided to get into venture capital in 1999, which, there was probably more. I was 25, I think, at the time. Probably more associates hired in 99 than at any point since, maybe cumulatively. So I joined Reuters Venture Capital then, and so just the tail end of 99, I got kind of 3 or 4 months of crazy fun at the end of the internet bubble, and then a lot of years of picking up the pieces afterwards. So I was at DFJ for 9 years after Reuters, and then left there to set up Forward Partners in 2013, and I'll talk a bit more about Forward Partners at the end. So that is the really quick rattle through my history. So the big trend, and you'll be familiar with this, I'm sure, but it's hard to overstate how important it is, right? But the big trend in startup financing is that it's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to start companies, and that has just huge ramifications. And so the drivers of that are one, cloud computing, with Amazon really being in the forefront, and this is just one aspect of that. Costs down 90% in 10 years, and and they continue to go down. Amazon do price cuts kind of a couple of times a year, and now they've got Google and Microsoft also matching them and driving price cuts too. So this trend, it's got legs. So that's one side of it, and then the other side is software is getting cheaper too. Open source software is again transformed the cost of starting businesses. So what does all this mean? If you've got much lower costs, then you're able to control the risk in your business much more quickly and cheaply. So this is a graph from, how many of you guys know The Lean Startup by Eric Ries? Good. How many have actually read it properly end to end? This is really, well done, Tim. Because it's I think a widely known book. A lot of people have read it, picked up the core elements, but not enough people have really absorbed it in detail. But this is kind of one of the key graphs, and this bit is I think the thing that everybody has taken away, and it is the most important conclusion, which is you can jump onto this build, measure, learn loop very quickly and very cheaply with all the free software and cloud computing, and then that allows you to iterate towards a product that consumers will like. And that effectively enables you to manage the risk in your business, because you're getting into that learning loop, getting to what customers want without having to spend a ton of money to build a product and then open the doors and hope that they all come. The other consequence of all this is that the number of startups has exploded, and these are some deal volume stats out of London. It's more extreme in California, and so it's again fairly obvious to understand, isn't it? If it's cheaper to start a company, more people will. This bit is maybe kind of less well or less extensively discussed. So because companies need less money, then they become less dependent on investors, and at the same time the venture funding market has become more mature, so there's more money in the market, and so the balance of supply and demand has shifted hugely. So back when I started in venture in '99, there were, particularly in Europe, there were very few VCs, and startups felt they were kind of lucky to get a meeting, and the kind of the standard modus operandi for investors was to have these kind of big scary offices, that the oak panel walls, screaming money and success, and the entrepreneur who's not got much yet is feeling, well, crikey, I don't even feel comfortable in here, and all this is set up to, maybe I'm being cynical here, but all this is set up really to establish a power dynamic in the relationship which favours the investor, and then it also kind of reflected the kind of the balance of supply and demand as well at that time. But fast forward to 2015, and there are more sources of capital, and companies need less capital, or can certainly get to the next stage with less capital if they need to. And so that means that the entrepreneurs have more options, and the investors are having to chase entrepreneurs now instead. And so this is the big shift, right? Power is moving to the company. The balance of power has shifted. That's why VCs are moving to Shoreditch. We're wearing jeans, and I'll talk about some of the more ramifications now. So working harder to add more value, and I think the right way to think about the venture business now is as a services business for entrepreneurs. An investment, cash is one part of that bundle, but then if you get into that mindset, you think, oh, what else should go in the bundle? And I'll talk at the end here about what we've put in the forward bundle. But Andreessen Horowitz and Google Ventures are two of the funds which are leading the charge in this regard in the States. And so, Andreessen has they call it a full service venture firm. So they have a team of, I think it's 40 people assisting their portfolio companies. So they help with recruitment, they help with sales, and they've got a design partner, and they're prolific in the content they produce, which is actually that takes us to the next slide. I'll come back to that in the slide after. So the other big trend is to, as well as adding value, is to get focused on sectors. So when there's many more companies to look at, then it becomes more and more difficult to process that deal flow. And so the benefits of having a focus on a sector are, one, that you've got a crude filter which allows you to have a manageable amount of deal flow, so you can actually think sensibly about all the companies that fall within your sector. So I was with Andy Weissman, who's one of the partners at Union Square Ventures, on Monday night, and that was the primary rationale he gave. He goes, I just don't know how anyone could not be sector focused. I'd go crazy, right? And kind of the way that manifests itself is that if you're looking at deals from all sectors, and you think you need to seriously consider deals from all sectors, then when something which sounds good comes in an area that you don't understand, you spend time with them. And if the entrepreneur's good and they can sell a good story, then you can get sucked in even if the underlying company isn't very strong, because you're not expert in the sector. Whereas if you do develop some expertise in a sector by focusing, then you do become expert, you make better investment decisions, and then what follows from that is that the best entrepreneurs want to work with you because you become known as the expert, and then the whole thing spirals up. So Union Square Ventures focus on network businesses, IA Ventures focus on big data businesses. Foundry Group are the other fund that have had a successful sector-based strategy. It's harder to kind of pin them. They've got like 5 themes that they identify, which they've gone through in detail. One's about email, one's about what they call glue, so the infrastructure of companies. And then Forward Partners, we focus on the e-commerce ecosystem. And now we get to the content piece. So the other thing that you better do when the supply and demand balance shifts is sell yourself better. And this is quite a hard shift, you know, and you see it time and time again in industries that are being transformed mostly by the internet, is that, you know, industries where people didn't have to sell themselves suddenly have to sell themselves. And it's just like a super hard transition, typically, you know, for partners who weren't trained to sell. So Union Square Ventures, that's Fred Wilson's blog there, many of you will be familiar with. You know, amazing content marketing for him. He's become, you know, a world name based on his blog. Mark Andreessen, this is a good story. So he sent his first tweet at 1 minute past midnight at the beginning of 2014, and he. What did he do? He averaged 150 tweets a day, I think, in the first 6 months of last year. Biggest day was 500 tweets. And the guy's he's a machine. And he invented the tweet storm that you've probably heard of. You know, this is where you sort of send a sequence of tweets that are numbered. So, you know, it's a hack to get over the 140 character limit. And so he's become massive, like huge on Twitter as a result. Again, very clever marketing. Ben Horowitz is partner wrote an amazing book that it seems everybody in the tech sector in the world has read. Office hours is another interesting way of marketing. So we do this as well. You know, invite a number of entrepreneurs to come in for 15-minute meetings and talk about anything they want. And so just kind of open the door, make yourself more accessible. And then running events. So, you know, we run a monthly speaker series of events, but Andreessen Horowitz and others run their events too. You know, so these are all kind of innovations in marketing to help attract more deal flow effectively. Now, so this is the forward path. This is kind of our approach to adding more value. And so this is the first time I've really run through it for an audience, so kind of bear with me, let me know how it is afterwards. So kind of where we start is with the entrepreneur, this guy in the corner down here. And so, you know, if we're going to invest, we need a great entrepreneur with a great idea. And what we're about really is helping entrepreneurs to achieve success. You know, and when you kind of really distill it down, you know, I think what investors are providing is well, what we're selling really is success. And so you know, we think, what does that path to success look like? You know, and it's individual for every entrepreneur. That's why we call it your route to success. And you know, we kind of capture this with a winding path. The progress isn't going to be even, right? We all know that. It's good times going to be painful, times it's going to be amazing. That's the journey. But we've thought long and hard about, okay, so what are the different stages along this journey, and how can we help? And so the first stage is really working with the idea. And that's about talking with customers. It's about building really quick and dirty prototypes. Then it's about focusing on the product. So that's about getting a version of the product out there with a significant number of customers, and, you know, and that should really resonate. And then after you've got a product that's valued by enough customers, then it's time to focus on the business elements. And so that is really about getting the economics straight. So, you know, are you acquiring customers cheaply enough? Is it costing you less to serve your you know, is the price of your product greater than the cost it is to deliver it? And so on, and building a team. And so kind of the journey which we encourage people to go on is, you know, let's make sure that your idea feels valid. Then you have a product that's valued by customers, and then ultimately you have a valuable business, and you're on the path to success. And we work with companies over a year to do that, and typically this is how it splits. So a couple of months on the product, on the idea, 4 months on the product, and then 6 months to get the business stuff right and close the next round. And then we've done a lot of thinking about, you know, so what goes underneath that, and what you see here is just a kind of a summary of that, and we'll be publishing more and more of this in due course. But, you know, what is it that makes an idea valid? What is it that makes a product valued? And what is it ultimately that makes a business valuable? And so all of this is us really thinking, you know, how do we add value to companies? How do we help them on their journey to, you know, to success? And I guess the final thing to say about this is that we make half of our investments at the idea stage, and then the other half kind of drop in somewhere at the business stage, and then we help them get through that last piece to Series A. So in summary, and this has been a quick counter, so the big trend here is declining startup costs. I'm going to head over here. The big trend is declining startup costs, so that shifts power to the entrepreneurs. And so we're all got to focus on value add and selling ourselves much better. And effectively think of ourselves as service providers. And I think a few investors are getting their heads around this now, but not everybody yet. And the really interesting question then is, so if you adopt this approach, as I hinted earlier, what do you bundle with your capital? So I've talked about what we bundle with our capital, and and all of that's delivered by a, you can see here, so we combine capital with the proven methods and a team to help you on that journey and take the steps that I was describing before. And in order to make that work effectively, we found that the companies should co-locate with us in our offices. So we provide office space. So that's our view on this bundle, and the early signs look good, but the proof will be in how much money we make over the next 8 to 10 years. Really, other people are experimenting with different bundles, but I think what we will see for sure is more and more things bundled alongside capital by investors. So that's it, and no coughing.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you've got obviously what all this new technology is doing is helping you to reduce the cost of building a business. We've just come through a recession, so you've got a lot of people who are thinking about starting a business. That the idea of being an entrepreneur is now widely accepted, where maybe 10, 15 years ago it was maybe a bit of a stigma to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And particularly over here in Europe, we don't really have much of a secondary market to sort of take that next stage once a company gets to a certain size and make it successful. With all of these new entrepreneurs coming along trying to build business, how do we ensure that enough of them actually get a chance of that success and actually can build to become sustainable businesses for the long term?
So having enough capital in the market is what you're talking about, and over the 15 years that I've been in this game, it's we've been capital constrained at every level really. But I think, and I've been blogging about this, I think the signs are that we're approaching critical mass now. We're approaching the point where for enough good companies that the follow-on money will be there. I think it's been the case for a long time that for the very best companies the capital was there, but it was the companies that so for the A+ companies were always getting funded big rounds and so on. It's the A grade companies and the A- companies which can still go on to be great businesses. Too many of them were struggling. Too many of them were getting too little investment and having to grow slower than they would have done in the States. And so that I think is really starting to change now. The EIS has been a massive boon for seed investments, and then at the Series A and Series B level, there's a whole host of new funds coming online, some Mosaic Ventures, Google Ventures, both 100 million plus funds last year, DN Capital, their latest fund. There's other people out raising funds that I think are going to get there soon. So I think all of that's feeling better. But we just got to keep working at it and drive the returns ultimately. Tim?
I just got hello. I've never been accused of needing a microphone before. Slightly different kind of question. One of the things that intrigued me, Nick, about the way you told the story of getting here and bundling services was about the change in supply and demand, and the fact that actually this is about investors needing to chase the deals a bit more. The bit that worries me about that is that that's exactly what we said in 1998 and 1999, which led to incubators as full service providers, including office space and mentoring and finance advice, and what that led to was a gigantic bubble. If that supplier-demand relationship has changed, is that not actually almost the very definition of a bubble?
So I think that the definition of a bubble is not that. And there are prices are rising and there are signs, but for me, there are lots of people want to define bubbles in different ways, but the definition I like the most is, when there's a bubble, everybody's talking about it, and when it bursts, everybody gets hurt. So cabbies are recommending that you buy shares, and people are doing that, and the stock market crashes, the cabbies are hurt, every man on the street is hurt. If you look at what's happening now, There are some big late-stage valuations, and companies are raising 100 million at these billion-plus valuations. We had Farfetch here last week, didn't we? Certainly not commenting on Farfetch, which I think is a very good business, but kind of generically, I think it's a valid concern that the prices for some of these businesses are a bit toppy, and that there's a bubble at that end of the market. But if that turns out to be true, then sorry, now I'm running out. If that turns out to be true, then the people who are going to get hurt are a relatively small number of late-stage investors, hedge funds, basically, and it's not going to spread wide. So if I think we're on the way up. Does it turn into a massive bubble that bursts with huge effect? Is there a small correction and we carry like this? I think that's to be seen. I'm going to have a big cough, excuse me. Go on.
There does seem to be a lot more money about over the last 6 to 12 months. I was wondering what you thought the underlying reasons, the structural reasons for that sudden deluge of different people wanting to invest are.
So I think the single biggest reason is that, and we're talking about Europe here, right? In the States, there's been a lot of money for a while. The single biggest reason is that we're starting to see success in Europe. There were, in the e-commerce sector in which we focus, there were £3 billion IPOs last year. Zoopla, Appliances Online, and Just Eat. There's the King IPO if you're into gaming. Supercell was $1 billion. And so there's increasing amounts of success, and people are seeing great returns, and that's attracting more capital. So that's the single biggest thing. EIS is another big thing. Should we have some lunch? Cool. Thank you very much.